Welcome to Phenomeno. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've been wanting to play this game for a really long time now, but I just never got around to it. Here we are, finally, after all these years. Literally years. I don't know very much about this at all, other than I read the synopsis and it looked relevant to my interests. Apparently, it's based on a light novel series, I think, and then this particular visual novel is the first book? Maybe? That's about as far as I got. Anyway, it's been translated into English. So, let's check the prologue. Let's just head right on in. I really don't know much of what this is about, so let's explore it together. But apparently it's very horror. I hope it's very horror. There are things that shouldn't be seen. Often said my late grandmother, and that was quite true. Indeed. I was drawn to the occult from childhood, and upon entering university, I learned the truth of those words by stepping many times into the edge of the netherworld. I hate it when that happens. Ghosts. Beings which no one can decisively determine whether they exist or not. The story that begins here revolves around stories brought forth by them. And this story, it can also be said to be the story of it and I. Yes. As its eyes glimmer in front of strangeness, as it breathes out words with a bedazzled expression, it warped the world that I always believed in. It made me anxious of whether the ground I stood on would shake. I would want to look over my shoulder just by listening, and I grew to fear whether someone were peeking from the dark shadow of the door. Maybe it was because the words it spoke included truths about the other side. It included truths that only applied to the scant, grotesque, waning, dead ones. Now, after it has disappeared, do I finally know that? As grandmother said, it was a world that I should not have seen. It was a story that was not for the living person. However, I intend to speak of that. I intend to speak about all of that, okay? Because if I don't, it wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Because it, having lived on the edge of darkness, having struggled through the threshold of darkness, would not be able to live in peace. Yes, I'll say it once more. From here on, is a story that shouldn't be known. Alright, fair enough. Phenomeno. Well, I'm not gonna lie, I'm intrigued to see what this story is about. I've heard good things about it, and it's also not very long. Couple of hours, maybe? Case 1. Flow. Neat. I'm clicking, but nothing's happening. Oh. It's just very slow. Hey, mother. Wait, can I, save in this? How do I save? If the beings called ghosts existed in this world, would it ever be possible for someone to prove their existence such that no one anywhere could argue otherwise? I already feel this translation is going to destroy my brain. I think it would be impossible, no matter how much humanity evolves. On the flip side, it also means no one anywhere could prove irrefutably that they do not exist. From that standpoint, to discuss whether ghosts exist or not is a complete waste of time. That's why people who can emerge victorious from such a discussion must be people who can purely enjoy ghosts as a source of entertainment. Hey, that's me! Indeed, I fall under that group, and you could call me, quite bluntly, as an occult maniac. Mother may not know, but this is quite a niche existence in the world. To be of my age, and go ghost this, Uma that. I know that people laugh at people like me, but you know, there are plenty of things in the world that are inexplicable. Yes. What? For example, the house I'm living in. This old, almost 30 years old building is by the side of the Tamagawa waterworks, and partly because it's located in such an odd place, has an incredibly low rent. When I came to Tokyo this spring, I looked for a cheap apartment and found this place. It takes 10 minutes of biking to reach a convenience store. It's surrounded by darkness and covered by a thick copse, and because there are no street lights in the area, it's completely dark at night. However, I enjoy this old building. It was built like an old mountain cottage, as the first floor was a garage and the second and third floors were a blowout. What? So it was more than luxurious for a person living alone. Excuse me, what's a blowout? What? I have honestly never heard that term before, like referring to a house. The kitchen was as cramped as a kitchenette, but it had a living room, a Japanese-style room, a bath, and even an atelier. I have asked before how I pronounce this word I remember, and I don't remember. I probably butchered it. I am sorry. I do that a lot. From what I hear, an architect had designed it as a personal workspace. I liked it at first sight. Just liked. Not loved, liked. Furthermore, for a place with a bath to be just 30,000 yen in Tokyo, Musashino was unthinkably rare, and it even came with an oral story. That could not be ignored. Well, this is a house that grants wishes. Ooh. So said the smiling real estate agent who introduced this place to me. The architect who built this became famous. The illustrator who moved in became busy and moved closer to the city. And the young couple that was living here until last month gave birth to a baby, which led to this becoming open. You are quite lucky. After hearing that, who wouldn't immediately seal the deal? So, I jumped at the opportunity. There was probably a feeling of superiority too, given that my colleagues at university pay over twice the rent and live in rabbit cages. In any case, I was quite pleased at how lucky a man I was with my first time living alone. Yet, within a month I realized how big of a mistake that was. Get wrecked! We got some kayako sounds going on. I can hear sounds somewhere when I'm sleeping at night. The squeaking of something persistently attempting to open some old door. I'd assumed it was just some bad structuring somewhere, but I soon realized that it was odd that it always happened at 2 a.m. I tried going to the living room from my bedroom at the edge of the second floor. And the sound would stop. I thought maybe it was coming from above and went to the, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this word, atelier? Atelier? I'm just going with that, I'm so sorry, on the third floor. But there was nothing that could be the source of the sound. I'd planned to eventually organize it to be cooler, but at the moment it was a bare environment with just my desk and a bookshelf. I looked around, but the windows were all shut, so there was nothing to make a sound. After that, I went to the toilet and the bath. However, I could not find anything that could be connected to the sound. So, I thought maybe I'm just hearing things and went to sleep again. But then the sound started again. Squeak. The sound of old wood groaning. I could also hear the sound of something scraping. It wasn't like a mouse or a cat. It was an eerie sound, like something trying to crawl out of somewhere dark after having been tormented for a long time. That's very specific. Eventually, That sound stopped seemingly echoing throughout the house and felt like it was seeping through the atmosphere around my ear. What? As a result, I began keeping the lights on throughout the house and using earplugs when sleeping. However, the problem stopped being just sound. It was about 2 weeks ago. I found a decisive thing. What? Okay. Uh-oh. I found Nana, 7, carved into the wall of the landing of the stairs with something sharp. I immediately checked the doors and windows around the house. But there didn't seem to have been anyone entering. Indeed, I was probably terrified. Yes, I was. It was a pretty big engraving, but I forced myself to think I had just never noticed it before. A few days later, though, I found near the bathtub, Roku, 6. Something sharp had carved it into the windowsill. And then a week ago, I found near the toilet, Go, 5. And even this easygoing person had to believe it. Is it counting down? Something was in this house. And that this was some countdown. This translation of it. Yes. I immediately jumped out of the house. I couldn't live in the house anymore. I hadn't made any close friends yet at university, so I lived in karaoke boxes and net cafes for several days. I couldn't talk about this to anyone. I didn't know any monks, nor any mediums. I think that's fairly standard. Most people don't generally know them. Then I realized, Nani? Right. Maybe the people from Ikaigabuchi, Edge of the Netherworld, would be perfect for discussing this with. The colleagues of mine, whom were also into the occult world, may believe me. And so, incidentally, they aren't suspicious people at all. No, we are plenty suspicious. What? Huh? I recoiled at the sudden voice from above. Oh. When I looked up, I saw Karasu's white face and she was waving her hand. Yo, Nagi! Karasu, since when were you there? I checked the time on my cell phone. It was 10:30 p.m. There was still 30 minutes until the offline meeting taking place at 11. Why are these people meeting up at 11 p.m? Go to bed. Right around when you begin explaining the house that grants wishes to your mother. That's basically the start. I complained, as I grumpily placed my stationery back my bag. Yes. Sorry. But peeping is like our trait, Wait, what? What? Huh? Nani? Said Karasu as she smiled cutely. What the nani? This was a family restaurant near Itsukai Ichikai, that's very hard to say, road. We were going to have an emergency offline meeting here with the members of an occult site I frequent. And of course, Karasu wasn't her real name. It was a handle that she used online. Missing a full stop. Just as I, Yamada Nagito, go by the name Nagi, she went by Karasu. This was the 3rd time we'd met, but I still didn't know her real name. However, she was a veteran on the Ikaigabuchi site, and thus a big senior to me, who'd only begun looking at the site this spring. I like her outfit. Her appearance was, as usual, a purplish velvet dress that reached her ankles, and below that, just a black camisole, or rather, her chest was completely bare. Okay. Her breasts looked like they would jump out at any time, which made looking at her awkward. However, this was her uniform of sorts. Is this really going to be one of those stories? Like, is this necessary, really? Is it? You're quite early. Did you close shop early today? I asked. Pretty much. Fortune tellers don't have much to do when there are no customers. She took off the stole she was wearing and sat down across from me. The what? But to put it frankly, she played with the skull-shaped accessory shining at her breast as she looked at me. Yes, these things happen. Your house probably has nothing to it. What? What was it? Right. How do I pronounce this word? Why are there so many words I don't know? Schema. Shema. What is that? Some word used in cognitive science. I'll take your word for it. If you keep thinking you're scared, then you start seeing faces in the ceiling. That sort of thing. Because you were hearing squeaking every day, you began seeing numbers from the scratches that always were in your house. Okay. Seriously? Seriously. I mean, you came to Tokyo alone from super ruralness in Shizuoka, and this is the first time you're living alone, right? And then you're living in an old wooden house alone, so it's not too surprising. I used to live in a house that groaned and squeaked a lot, so I know how you feel. It's like the sound of saran wrapping, so it's pretty discomforting. So she said, as she raised her hand to order beer from the waitress. Well, wait then. If this was just me being a wuss, then what should I say to the occult veterans that were coming to the offline meeting? Would I get banned from the wonderful site for being an airhead in just one night? These are words that I understand, but together they make no sense. Don't worry about it. She laughed. We're a bunch of folk that love meeting and trading shady stories. But it shouldn't be that simple, ? There were about 10 people coming to this meeting. And then Karasu said, and looked at me. You hadn't looked. At what? This meeting. I think over 30 people are showing up. What? Me too. I feel like there are chunks of information missing in this story already. I hurried accessed the Ikaigabuchi offline meeting board through my cell phone. And then opening the House That Grants Wishes /investigation thread and was taken aback. Yes, you're right. Why'd the number suddenly rocket? Are that many people interested in the House That Grants Wishes? Unfortunately, not at all. Rude. See, even the regulars, Sue and Zippo, are coming to the meeting, right? They wouldn't move for some mere horror tale. Some horror tale. She laughed at the expression I made as she plucked the phone from my hand and then played with it. And then she turned the screen to me. This, the fourth poster, going by the name Yoishi. Not Yoichi, Yoishi. Yoishi. I think this many people are showing up because this one announced their participation. Who is Yoishi? Yoishi? No idea. Same. Said Karasu with a grin as she pulled out a cigarette. She lit the cigarette using a worn, slender lighter. Wait, what? We can describe lighters as slender? And after blowing out a puff of smoke, quietly whispered, "Those that meet Yoichi die 7 days later." It's almost Yoichi. What? There's more. Yoichi isn't a living person. Offline meetings that Yoichi attends end in terror. What else was there? What is that? Something like an urban legend that started being whispered around Ikaigabuchi. Yet no one's actually met Yoichi. No one knows if Yoichi is some old man or even what gender they are. However, everyone who attends a meeting that Yoichi goes to remains silent. The entire thread disappears. The participants stop going to Ikaigabuchi, or Or they die. Dun, dun, dun. Her low whisper felt like ice-cold water splashing down the back of my neck. On the other side, Karasu happily received her glimmering cup of beer and exclaimed, "Gah, delicious," with a lackadaisical tone. Lackadaisical tone. What? I'm sorry, what is going on? What on earth is going on? But those are just rumors, right? I asked, and she laughed. That's right. So basically, even if the house that grants wishes is a miss, there's the hope of Yoishi. So everyone's gathering for fun. So you don't have to fret about it any. You don't have to fret about it any. Yes, she said. But I still felt mixed emotions. Until today, I was trembling with fear alone, unable to go home. And then I suggested today's offline meeting in the hopes of getting the opinions of the veterans of Ikai Gabuchi, having the story blown off immediately, as my misunderstanding wasn't sufficient to quell my fears. However, if Yoishi has gotten interested, might the house that grants wishes be real? Who knows? I'm just interested in seeing how Yoishi-kun's appearance changes the horror story that doesn't interest me into something more eerie. Well, she certainly speaks her mind. Doesn't interest. If it still bothers you, Ikai Gabuchi has a page for investigating haunted areas. You can request an investigation, although I still think you'll just end up being laughed at. She laughed, as she quickly finished her beer. Indeed, the Ikai Gabuchi site did routinely check out haunted areas around the country, regardless of fame. After investigation, haunted areas were graded on a scale of A to D, with A being the most dangerous of spots. This rating was very unique in that famed areas such as Masakado Kubizuka, and Iwainari were given a D rank by Ikai Gabuchi. In other words, they were rated as the lowest level of danger. Supposedly, it was because it had become an area that was evenly split, as humans and ghosts treated each other with respect. On the other hand, places given an A rank were often unknown to the common populace. Places such as crime scenes that involve murders brought forth by thick emotions such as infatuation and jealousy, isolated locales of death by seniors who maintained fanatic delusions, and so on. The word choices in this are certainly something. They say those places serve as lightning rods for souls that resented the current world, souls that had lost personalities and simply become clumps of malicious intent, same, far beyond saving. As I thought such things, Karasu had begun peering intently at my face. "Hey, Nagi-kun." "Yes?" "You have the mark of a meeting." "Yes?" And this is a girl. Look, I'm looking at these words. You're looking at these words with me. What? What is going on? No. Yes. Seriously? My expression loosened at her words. None of that makes a single lick of sense to me. Can you tell me a little more? She began playing with the skull-shaped accessory near her breast as she continued. I'm going to keep emphasizing her breast. How should I put it? It's a very dense meeting. What is going on? Like two souls previously split are reuniting. But, she said, seemingly looking through me and at a different world. It's hard to say if meeting this girl will actually result in happiness for you. What's that? Are these two people having the same conversation? What is going on? And furthermore, and who keeps saying furthermore in casual conversation? Huh? Wait, isn't she dead? This is something else. Hey, these people, it's like I'm reading two entirely different stories than just this sentence by sentence. What? Isn't that like being possessed? You've got to be kidding me, I thought. But I also remembered that she would tell me such ominous things every time we met. Previously, she told me I had bicycle luck. What? And then I got hit by a mamachari on the way back. And then she told me I had gold fortune and was happy. But then I stepped on a gold-colored thumbtack at home. I'm sorry, what? I'm not following this at all. In other words, she was very good at presenting unfortunate things in a way that you can't tell is unfortunate, which is an important skill for a fortune teller, I suppose. Yes. You know, karasu. If you're a fortune teller, shouldn't you also tell people how to avoid misfortune? No. I asked. But it's up to the person whether to think of something as unfortunate. She stuck out her tongue in a cute way and then shouted to the employee passing by, "Another beer, please." Yes, normal human interactions. Oh, as I sat there watching over her in a vexed manner, the door chime sounded repeatedly, and suspicious-looking people filed in one after another. Seeing how they were coming over after noticing karasu, I deduced that they were people attending the offline meeting. I appreciate the word choices in this, if nothing else. Yo, karasu, as beautiful as always. Long time no see to you too, Maru. I'm so excited, aren't we all? We have such karmic dispositions. What? I want to put that on a shirt. We have such karmic dispositions to show you. The box. You opened it. As such conversations continued, my seat in the back of the family restaurant slowly became surrounded by activity. Karmic dispositions. Every now and then, I would see a familiar face, but most I had never seen before. I'd actively been participating in offline meetings in Tokyo, and that I continued seeing new faces en masse. I cannot pronounce a French word to save my life. Each time made me realized how deep the world of the occult was. Indeed. Just after 11, the group that had gathered at the back of the family restaurant, with the odd interest, had passed 30. Help. Or rather, I'd picked the family restaurant, figuring there'd be 10. So this was pretty big transgression. The looks from the waitresses passing awkward smiles at me hurt. Are there more coming? I quietly asked Karasu, who was engaging in friendly chat with other attendees. And she was a bit blushed as she responded, "It's way too late now." There are a bunch of people who show up without saying anything, so there'll probably be a few more. That's problematic. Yes. This might scare away Yoishi too. She commented lightly, but this might really be troublesome. Oh. Ooh. All right. We're going to end this episode here. I'm thoroughly confused. What on earth is going on? All right. The story itself is intriguing. I like it. I'm here. Like this is relevant to my interests. I'm very interested in where the story is going. The translation is fascinating. I'm thoroughly enjoying the word choices. and getting absolutely thrown by a lot of things. They're like, I can see the Japanese behind it, so like I understand where it's coming from, but it's still just, it's just tossing me all over the room. Fascinating. Anyway, that episode 1 of Phenomeno. I assume there will be a couple more. I think it's a couple of hours long, so it's not a terribly long one again. Anyway, come back next week to find out what on earth is going on in this, because I have no idea. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys then. See ya. Welcome back. Let's get right into it. So, which one's Yoishi? As expected, not even an hour passed before the conversation blew past the house that grants wishes. The countless occult veterans crammed into the family restaurant each looked around them, frantically looking for the accursed Yoishi. I keep trying to say Yoichi. I'm playing a lot of Dead by Daylight. Alright, I propose introducing ourselves, said the middle-aged man going by the handle Professor, with his blushed face. Seeing empty beer mugs scattered around his table revealed how drunk this person was. And then in response, others chanted, "Yeah, let's do it." Let's. And one by one, people stood up and gave a greeting. As at least half the participants were getting quite drunk, people began feeling less like occult maniacs and more like a complete drinking party. First, I'm Professor. My preferred area of occult are stories from people of post-trauma ethnicity. If anybody understands what that actually means, please let me know in the comments. Second, I'm Rabbit. I love folklore about Ryomen Sukuna-sama, Deta, there he is. He's appeared in another thing. Third, I'm Harley. I get excited by stuff related to Maru parts. Okay. At the moment, I'm researching Voynich manuscripts. How do you pronounce that? Voynich? I don't know. What are they going first, second, third for? And why are Rabbit and Harley both jumping on the wagon? The occult maniacs were very playful, and so they began introducing themselves one by one. With incredibly loud volume, I alone seemed to be taking the brunt of the customers' glares from the rest of the restaurant. Cheers! Seventh, wow, I'm Karasu! When she energetically stood up, a round of applause arose, and in response, she began socializing every which way, so I gave up. This is just written really weird. Come to think of it, it could be said that every offline meeting for Ikaigabuchi turns out this way, and so it's like a trait of the site. Here, Nagi-kun, it's your turn next. Urged by Karasu, I begrudgingly stood up. 8. I'm Nagi. I'm a university student. What type of occult do you like? Yes. I like anything wonderful. What? But right now, things related to ghosts. Like, I understand what it's trying to say, but it's still funny. I like anything wonderful. When I lightly responded to a question that had been flung at me from a slingshot, people began shouting, "You're too tightly wound. You need to drink more." And someone ordered beer for me. This is like it's written by someone who's never seen actual human interactions before. Man, I'm still 18. I'm underage. I can't drink. Don't worry. I'll drink it. Just act like you're drinking and they'll be appeased. Laughed Karasu as she smacked my butt with her palm. Average, normal, human interactions. Well, in any case, what is going on? The 30 or so people introduced themselves like this. And the conclusion. What? Just yeah, no, alright. There was no one here who went by the handle Yoishi. Aww. And then they all stood up and slapped my butt. Huh, so they didn't show up. I showed up to see Yoishi. Is anyone faking their handle? Me. Said people one by one, but given that most had never seen other, and that offline meetings weren't particularly rare, it was hard to figure if anyone was lying. Oh, help. Well, since we've all gathered, can we discuss what the house that grants wishes is? I began, but Sue spoke over me. I think. Therefore, I am. An old veteran of Ikaigabuchi who managed a liquor store and liked collecting things like the arms of Tengu and the shell of Kappa, if I remember correctly. This is so strangely written. Yoishi might be a different handle of Krishna. I was sighing, same, but reacted to that name. That would make sense, someone responded. If we summarize the rumors involving Yoishi, if you deal with Yoishi, you'll have a terrifying end. Yoishi isn't a living person. Those that meet Yoishi die 7 days later. Something like that, ? But we've never heard any specifics of anyone dying, and maybe certain threads were disappearing because Krishna was secretly joining the horror area investigations, ? Is what I think anyways. I see, nodded even Karasu. This is so strangely written, what? Krishna hasn't been showing up lately either, so that'd make sense. Wait, please, I chimed in. Krishna, as in the administrator of Ikaigabuchi, Krishna, everyone's met him, ? Met him, or rather, he's always showed up to meetings before. Yes. But he's not here today, ? You want to see him? Of course. The reason I became interested in the site Ikaigabuchi in the first place was being the person named Krishna was so fascinating. Someone please pass that for me. Of course, part of it was that I was interested in the occult from the start, but there was a different sort of attraction with Ikaigabuchi. That was apparent, for instance, by looking at the odd words at the top of the page. Things that bother people also bother ghosts. Oh, I can actually see it written in Japanese in the back there. From the start, Ikaigabuchi was a site intended to soothe matters between people and ghosts. Most people can't see ghosts. That's why, regardless of our lack of ill intent, that we probably bother ghosts more than they do us was a perspective that was both fresh and unique. And as I read articles about renowned horror areas on Ikaigabuchi, my conviction deepened. Each article was filled with care toward ghosts, taking care to show respect towards both the living and the dead. I always wondered, why are people always afraid of ghosts? Perhaps some ghosts play tricks on people, while other ghosts say, "Come on, stop it," and are stepping in and intervening, yet no one ever thinks of that possibility. Won't someone please think of the ghosts? Maybe that sort of order is maintained by ghosts, and is why the vast majority of people live without ever being bothered by the supernatural. That paragraph struck a chord with me in particular. These words moved me when I'd just arrived in Tokyo and hadn't met anyone I could call a friend. I realized more than ever that people were connected to other people through candor. Okay. It gave me courage that I could make do in Tokyo, where it said that people's relationships with other people are often weak and diluted, where people try to avoid needless interaction with other people as much as possible. Hey, that's me. That was actually why I began participating in the site. I became attracted to the person named Krishna by their daily updates of the wonderful. The wonderful. His deep yet wide-ranging knowledge of the occult. His in-depth, cool writing style. Kakkoi! The truth that could be felt from each and every word. These were all things I lacked, and were packed with things that my soul needed right then. I'd gotten to the point where I felt like Krishna had become my brother and father in Tokyo. I'm not gonna lie. That's really weird. And if I could, I wanted Krishna to investigate the house that grants wishes himself. How old is Krishna? What kind of person is he? Nagi-kun, you're stuttering. Calm down. Here, have a drink. Undeterred by the interruptions by Sue and others, I rephrased my question. Please, tell me, how could I meet him? However, the response to my question was an awkward silence by the 30. Damn, that's harsh. I think he won't show up at an offline meeting again. Why? Some things happened. Well, you see... Some things... Well, eventually. You'll find out. Why is there a full stop there? Leave it be for now. I only received vague responses like that. What broke the silence at the family restaurant was Zippo, who I think worked as a programmer. I oppose that opinion. Yes, this is exactly how regular human beings speak. That opinion? Asked Karasu, and Zippo pushed his thick glasses up and slowly answered. How very anime of him. That, comma, Yoishi and Krishna are the same person, comma, that thought. Please. What do you mean? Actually, I know of someone who's met Yoishi at an offline meeting. I could feel the actually there. Really? The gathering immediately rose in unison. Yes, just normal human interactions. What sort of person? How old? Guy? Girl? Which offline? They all asked, and Zippo quietly answered. The offline meeting was for an investigation of an abandoned hospital in the Tama prefecture about half a year ago. I guess that's supposed to be Saitama. And what was Yoishi like? Well, I don't know. You don't know? Karasu asked, and Zippo swallowed once, only once, not twice, before answering. Because he's hospitalized. Dun, dun, dun. Hospitalized? Psychiatric ward. And with that, the excited gathering returned to silence. It was as if something heavy had descended upon the seats. That's just me. Hospitalized in a psychiatric ward. Is that Yoishi's fault? Asked Sue, and Zippo slowly shook his head. I don't know, but even after regaining consciousness, all he mumbled is, Yoishi. That's why I came to this meeting, because if Yoishi came, I wanted to ask what happened at that offline meeting, ? The punctuation's so weird. Everyone fell silent when Zippo stopped speaking. And then the family restaurant was filled once again with stories of Yoishi. Come to think of it, was the type of statement preceding conversations as one after another tales of Yoishi leaked from people. What? Nani? Huh? Sure. If I were to summarize such topics, it seemed Yoishi infrequently appeared on the Ikaigabuchi forum. Its appearance was not common, but whenever it showed up, it would post in almost every thread, providing opinions on everything regardless of how maniacal the topic. Given the time of appearance, Yoishi could be imagined as an occult maniac that was sitting in front of a computer almost 24 hours a day. It had knowledge of the supernatural to rival Krishna, but their posts showed no signs of sharing the ghost love that defined Krishna. If anything, they could be described as more eerie, as if a dead person had eerily joined the internet. Not regularly joined the internet, eerily. Maybe the rumors that Yoishi isn't a living person, they might be true after all, mumbled Jersey, who said he was a writer for a magazine. Remember that thread that popped up some time ago? I'm a ghost, but do you have any questions? Hey, that's an actual thread. Like, I've read it. Ah, the one where IP traces and PC and hosts all came up empty, so people wondered whether it was real. Hey, that's neat! They actually included like a knee channel thing. I'm of the opinion that... Wait, when did this game come out? I don't even know when this game came out. I'm of the opinion that... How do I pronounce this? Ethereal forms have good synergy with computers and digital equipment. Because, you know, brainwaves are weak electrical signals too. No, you. You do hear a lot of tales of ghosts riding online. I mean, if I'm a ghost, I'm probably not going to write stories on the internet. Like, I've got better things to do. Then, that Yoishi, mumbled Sue in a summarizing way. Yes, I often mumble in a summarizing way. It's true. We can't see it, but is it already here? They keep switching between it and they, and it's bothering me. Pick one. Those words sent a chill down my spine. I love it. Those words sent a chill down my spine. Beautiful. I looked around the brightly lit store. It wasn't just me. It seemed like everyone felt something cold. I hate it when your sign suddenly gets a chill. After that, the gathering seemed to decide to avoid talking about ghosts. Gradually, seats became arranged by topic as people broke off into their areas of interest. As the host of the offline meeting, I wanted to bring back the original topic, but I was certain no one remembered anything about my house. Furthermore, Sue was telling fascinating, eerie stories, and that was too interesting to pass up. An box bought from an antique store that could not be opened. Ghost stories involving paper money. I don't think this is meant to be paper money. I think they translated like a talisman wrong because it's the same character. Found behind a painting on a hotel wall. A laughing girl who spoke often to a doll. Each provided entertainment that could leave you sleepless when alone at night. Everyone forgot about time as they enjoyed the endless flow of occult discussions. And at around 1 a.m, the offline meeting dispersed. Wait a second. I chased Karasu as she flagged a taxi while glancing at the Ikaigabuchi members scattering in small groups. This is exactly the outfit I go outside in all the time. Always. What about my house? The house that grants wishes. And then the useless fortune teller, well, that's a bit rude, waved her hand with a completely flush face. She just drank all that beer for you and you just called her useless. Rude. No problem, no problem. It's that, how do I pronounce this? Schema? 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 And what else? I was going to tell you something else, but ha. I forgot. Same. What do you mean forgot? Don't worry. You have the mark of a meeting. See ya. Am I the only one this isn't making any sense to? She smacked my back and then happily jumped into the stopped taxi. I'm not gonna lie, translations like this make it worth it. I don't want translations to get so good to the point where like I can't just laugh at how silly they sound. I stood there dumbfounded as I saw the taxi run off. It's just art. I wondered if it was alright to go home. Why wouldn't it be? To that house. Yes, presumably if you're going home to your house. The house that grants wishes. Whew. Jitencha. I walked toward the train station, using the main street, dragging along the mamachari that I'd bought really cheap online for commuting to school. Tokyo was filled with people even late at night. In particular, the area around the train station near my house was close to many universities, so there seemed to be no difference in the amount of people milling about from noon to night. Please use full stops and commas. Right around where I could see the station, I almost ran into a pair of girls and apologized. One shot me a "who's this punk" look, but the other smiled and said, "I'm sorry." I apologized once more. That was all there was to it, but it filled my heart with joy. What? Indeed, a fateful meeting was lying in wait for me. Okay. And a girl, no less. Okay. This might be good. Wait. He bumped into 2 girls at the station and suddenly he's in love? This is what? Huh? Nani? The bizarre events tormenting me at that house must surely be a build-up for the happiness that awaited. Just normal human thoughts. Yes. In the future, I would look back at it and laugh it off. Okay. I felt less burdened when I thought of it that way. And this way, I wouldn't have to move out. Moving costs would be painful for me, given that I was receiving no aid from home. The offline meeting was fun too. I can't keep complaining. I mumbled to myself, and I finally straddled the bike. I turned completely around and decided to return home for the first time in a few days. No one that came to the offline meeting today said anything about the house that grants wishes. If you look at it from another angle, it means it can't possibly be a ghost incident. It's a bit shameful as the original poster, but it's all good in the end, right? What would have happened if I'd dragged people over to my house and it turned out that there were no ghosts? I'd just be a laughingstock. Having finished arming myself with logic. Yes, I begin every day by arming myself with logic. I faced the soft, comforting night breeze and powered the pedals. I love it. I'd recovered to the point where I may have even hummed. However, I noticed it when I was about to re-enter the main street from the arcade in front of the train station. There was a strange, abnormal feeling on the back of my left foot. It was like I was constantly stepping on gum, so I stopped my bike and took off my sneaker right there. And then I lifted my left foot a bit, just a bit, looked at the sole, and froze. All of my good feelings were extinguished, and I felt my blood freezing on the back of my sneaker. Nani? Was engraved the number Shi. Alternatively, Yon. 4. Damn it. What the hell? I don't know what this word even means, let alone how to pronounce it. The countdown was continuing. I pushed the mamachari along with mostly a half step. And every person passing gave me a strange look owing to my frantic look, but I paid them no heed. Yes. I threw away the sneaker with Shi, Yon, 4 engraved on the spot. I couldn't continue wearing such an eerie thing. Now your foot's gonna get cold. The cold of the concrete and the scattered pebbles pierced my feet through my socks. But I didn't care. Yeah, you gotta be careful. Those pebbles, they'll pierce your feet. Why? When was Yon carved into the back of my sneaker? What was going to happen when the countdown ended? And how would I be able to escape from this terror? I had no idea, but in any case, I kept running. People in fancy clothing looked at me and laughed, but I didn't care. I just wanted somewhere with a warm atmosphere. Yes. Where? Where would that be? Eventually I found a discount shop open late into the night after passing through the arcade, and I jumped in. A stupidly bright theme song was playing in the background. Yeah, they tend to do that. The mass of products were incredibly cheap, and I sang along with the simple, repetitive melody. Do do do. Flamboyantly dressed girls avoided me as I stood there, leaning against a shelf holding cosmetics and mumbling to myself. Just normal human interactions. An employee asked me, "Are you unwell?" And I finally realized that my left foot, which was only covered by socks, was throbbing. Okay. When I looked, perhaps I'd stepped on a shard of glass on the way, as I saw that the socks had been cut and bloody. Dude, you're bleeding all over their store. That is very unhygienic. I bought bandages, socks, and the cheapest sneaker, only one, and cleaned the wound in the bathroom. That's gross. I cleaned the back of my foot, placed the bandage, and wore the new socks. Yes, the cheap sneaker. Only one, had a shoddy design and wasn't very comfortable, but it was better than being barefoot. It was an unnecessary expense, but I felt comforted. I was afraid of being in the bathroom alone, so I returned to the inside of the store and took deep breaths as I wandered around the store, as if window shopping. Help. What should I do now? I thought, but could come up with no answer. At some point, I'd just begun standing in front of a show window absent-mindedly, and the employee from before asked if anything was wrong again, so I left the store. There was no helping it, so I began heading toward the net cafe I'd been using before, but it was already full. I peeked into the nearby karaoke box, but there was even a line spilling out onto the street. I tried wandering around several stores, but they were all the same. Come to think of it, it was Saturday night. There would be no openings until the first train. However, I couldn't think of any other place to go. I wandered around the station while dragging my bike, and the police would shoot me suspicious looks. I almost felt like it would be more comforting to be arrested, but some level of common sense remained in me. Yes, so I turned back to the main street. The headlights of cars on Itsukaichi Street. Itsukaichi, why is that hard for me to say? Illuminated me as they passed by. Normally, the cars just looked like fuel-consuming devices. Just regular, normal human way of speaking, by the way. But today, I felt consoled by them. Yes. Yeah. It was invigorating to look upon things that could be scientifically explained. Like, I understand what the story's trying to do, but I don't know if it's like the story itself or the translation or a bit of both, but it's just so silly. However, I may have been at my limits. I have several. I reached all of them. This was no different from being homeless. I had no one I was intimate with enough in Tokyo where the light never dims. I had no place to go. And I was running low on funds. I mean, I've actually done this in Tokyo. Like, I've gone there without hotels to stay in, with like even groups of people. Literally, there is always a place that you can find to stay. Always. And even if not, like, you just walk around the streets for a bit. Like, the things don't close. They're open forever. There are lights everywhere. There are people everywhere. 2 a.m. some random street, there will still be people there. All right. I spontaneously looked at the night sky. Why is spontaneously necessary in this sentence? But just as there were no clouds, there were also no stars. It was just an obsidian dimension that stretched on as if painted. Help. Perhaps I could call my sister and borrow some money in the morning. And then go back to Shizuoka. Sounds like a plan, bro. Tokyo was too much for me, which was something humiliating to say, but this was just too unexpected. Oh, I'd imagine most people would have trouble with such a case too. Mother, I'm sorry. You supported me so much in coming to Tokyo. Then, we're ending this episode right now. This is amazing. I don't know what else to say. Like, I'm legitimately enjoying it, but it's wonderful. Come back next week to find out what happens after then. I hope you guys are enjoying this, because I certainly am. I'll see you guys again next time. See ya. Welcome back. That's right, we ended on a cliffhanger. Then I saw a strong light at the end of the night street. When I looked up, I realized I'd come back to the family restaurant. I see. This was also open 24 hours. That was enough to make me feel like I'd found a million allies, and my knees almost buckled. Yes, also the same reaction I have. The drink bar here was cheaper than the Net Cafe, and there were plenty of people about due to it being Saturday night. I should have just stayed here from the start. Ha 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 ha. I laughed to myself dryly, as we all do, and must have been very hard to approach with how I looked. Anyways, I left my mamachari at the bicycle lot for the family restaurant, and then was about to enter when I recoiled. Same. There was something even more bizarre that made me not want to get any closer. Nani? Outside the big glass window to the store, inside the fern thicket that seemed to have been planted to cover the store. Dun dun. Was a girl dressed in full black. No, not full black. She wore a black long coat, even though it was spring, and her long hair that stretched down her back, and her skirt, and her boots were also pure black. Oh no, yet her skin was abnormally white, and she was crouched in the darkness, so it looked like only her face was floating. What is she doing? She was standing in the middle of the thicket and almost pressing her face against the glass as she stared into the store. It was so creepy, I was about to back off. Dun dun. But then she slowly turned to face me. Her face was shockingly white, and the face was perfectly aligned. I get what they're trying to say, but her face was perfectly aligned is still amazing. She was so perfect that I felt like saying she must have been a construct, like a giant... what is this? What is a bisque doll that had accidentally been left there? That's the impression she gave. A night-colored girl. I'm sorry, what? What is that even supposed to mean? Unexpectedly, those words popped into my head. I can't say that would be the first thing I would think, but okay. Those were the colors of the girl's eyes. Maybe it was because of the lighting, but it felt like an inordinately large proportion of her eyes were taken by her irises. And that under her long eyelashes, they seemed to have a jet black glimmer. Indeed. Below her straight cut front hair, they shone a dark color as they gazed upon me. Are you? No question mark. Just, are you? My mouth naturally spoke, as opposed to unnaturally. Yoishi? Question mark. The girl silently nodded. So Yoishi's a chick. Yoishi isn't a living person. Those that meet Yoishi die 7 days later. Offline meetings that Yoishi attends end in terror. What I'd heard earlier floated around my head as I stared at the girl in front of me. 7 glasses were laid out on the table in front of Yoishi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yes. Ranging from iced coffee to cola to orange juice to Japanese tea, creating her own drink bar. She is going to need the toilet something fierce. Aren't you supposed to just take one at a time? I said to her in an exasperated tone, but she replied, as long as I drink everything, there should be no problem. And she kept her eyes on the glasses as she drank one after another. She drank orange juice, then iced coffee, and then warm Japanese tea cola. I'm sorry, what? And she faithfully repeated the order a number of times, sometimes adding rooibos tea and black tea and melon soda as an accent. What? I didn't know if there was a meaning to the order, but when she did it, it felt like some sort of traditional religious ritual, which was odd. Yes. I took a look again at the girl who went by Yoishi. She was probably still in high school. I realized when looking at her under a brighter condition that she had immense beauty. A brighter condition. However, the problem was her eyes. Oh, come on now, that's rude. Those eyes that seemed like glass beads seemed to be looking somewhere and yet also seemed to be looking nowhere. Same. It's just my eyes unable to focus. It felt as if she did not share the same world, creating a special barrier about her. Hers was not like that of a princess and her high perch, rather, if anything, like that of a witch's apprentice. Okay. Hey, I asked the girl dressed in black, as she busily rifled through the drinks. Yes, I rifle through my drinks all the time. Why didn't you come to the offline meeting? Why are we just looking at the top of her head? I was there. No, but when everyone was around, you didn't come. I was there. Right there the whole time. Dun dun. She pointed toward the other side of the window, where I'd first found Yoishi. In other words, in the bush outside the store. She was just lurking. There, with her face pressed against the glass. Then, what? From 11 until now, you were there the whole time? Yes, she nodded. And as I started at her pale face, I thought, this girl, is she what you'd call psychic? Excuse me, I didn't even press anything. It didn't even let me finish reading it. I'm assuming it said psychic. It was already past 2 a.m. To stick to glass for 3 hours from 11 p.m. must have creeped out the employees. Please. To stick to glass for 3 hours. When I turned back towards her, a different waitress from before was saying something to Yoishi. Her expression was contorted in an extremely mean manner. You meanie. In a much more contemptuous manner than they'd shown me. I stood up, having felt like I'd seen something detestable. This translation's amazing. I immediately walked toward them, declared, I want a drink bar as well. And then headed straight towards the counter to grab a drink. Yes, I also want a drink bar. I don't know why I felt so irritated. Probably it was because I'd felt like I'd been laughed at as a fellow occult lover. This story sure is something. I filled my glass to the brim with ice. Why? Then you get less drink. Then pressed the button for iced coffee. Now then, what to do from here out? Indeed. As I watched the hot iced coffee melt through the ice, I thought, wait, what? If it's iced coffee, why is it hot? I have questions. I could not go home, and the countdown continued. Furthermore, that's right, he found the countdown on the bottom of his shoe. I had run into the heresy class occult girl from Ikai Gabuchi, and now, for some reason, I'm alone with her at a family restaurant late at night. In a way, it was comforting that I was not alone, but given that it was an occult girl with strange urban legends attached to her, I was left with complex emotions. I'm sorry, her face. She's just like, staring into space. Same. You like bad coffee? He's getting judged. When I returned to my seat, Yoishi said that. Nani? I asked if you like bad coffee. The coffee here is unsatisfactory. I looked at her 7 glasses again and noticed that only the iced coffee had hardly been sipped. But is it really iced if it's warm? Information that you can gather beforehand should be processed before you act. Yoishi's neat, logic-filled words annoyed me. What is this story? So I replied with some nastiness. What? Then allow me to gather information. Oh, got 'em. Why did you come to today's offline meeting? Oh, because I was interested, indeed. Excuse me. In the house that grants wishes, why are you interested in that house? The sounds are probably just structural groans, and the engravings might just be my mistake, right? I said exactly what Karasu told me, in a self-depreciating manner. Deprecating? Depreciating? Yes, that word. And Yoishi simply said, of course, without any hint of retorting. Then, why? When I read about that house on the forum, I felt a bit of an oddity. I gotta say, I'm also feeling many oddities right now. Her low, whispering tone gave me goosebumps. There are countless stories of oddities overflowing on the internet, but most of them are fake. Real ones, though, they have a scent that cannot be hidden. Something hot bubbled forth from the bottom of my stomach at those words. You might want to get that looked at. Having a psycho. Wait, he didn't call her a psychic, he called her a psycho. Or did they just do some special translation here? What? Having a psycho believe you isn't really something to be pleased about. But I was, to be frank, happy that there was someone that would finally listen to the source of my fears. Translation's something. Indeed. That place is real. I was in shambles already, as the bottom of my shoe had been carved into. I'm sorry everyone, my life is in shambles because I found something scrawled on the bottom of my shoe. Hey, what is that? Is it a ghost? Are you the type that can see them? What do you mean by having a scent that cannot be hidden? It means you should probably take a shower. I couldn't stop myself from blurting out questions, and Yoishi stared at a glass of orange juice as she flatly answered. First question first. It may not be a ghost. Nani? Next question. It's not that I can see everything. Final question. A feeling. Real abnormalities always have a strange sense of not fitting together. Yoishi switched out of her previous dazed posture and began talking. I'm sorry, that menu is making me hungry. Strange phenomena happen. People related to it become afraid. Yes. When you investigate, you find out that someone committed suicide there. I won't say that such neatly placed together stories are all fake. However, the real, fun ghost stories surpass such things. There's a feeling as if something important has been skipped over. Being able to fill in the gap is the single theory of the other side. What? In other words, what? Yes. I want to get a shirt with that. In other words, what? What is that eerie sound that keeps happening at my house? Why are numbers being written? And why are they always going down? What happens to me when the numbers run out? Dun, 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 dun. I'd subconsciously stood up as I shouted, "What's going to happen to me?" All right, calm down. The store went silent and everyone was looking at me. Embarrassed a bit, I sat back down. However, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I didn't know what to do anymore. I was a bit ashamed of myself and scratched my head when Yoishi quietly mumbled, "You are the one that posted that." Indeed, it was me. I looked up, and Yoishi's cold, dark irises were mysteriously glimmering. Yes, eyes often do that. I nodded, and explained what had just happened. That she, Yon, had already arrived, and that it had been carved onto the bottom of the sneakers I had been wearing myself. Yes. I explained that while trembling. How does someone carve that? Did something possess me all the way from home? I was almost in tears when I asked, and then I recoiled. Same. Yoishi's eyes, which were once like glass beads, had seemed to harbour life. Why are these descriptions always so flowery? And then she suddenly placed a finger to my nose, normal human interactions, and said, "Hey, close your eyes." What? Huh? Her pretty face peered into me, gazing into my eyes. Ooh, her face had come so close to me that, to be honest, my heart started racing. Why do I have to close my eyes? Just do it. My heart thumping, I did as she said. I closed my eyes tightly. It felt like some inappropriate imagination had drifted in, so I frantically warded that away. Yes, imagine. Imagine. Her lips seemed to move at the back of my eyes, commanding, "What? How does that even work?" "You are standing at the entrance of your house." This music is very dramatic. Her frosty, yet somewhat kind voice forced me to stand before my house. As detailed as you can, imagine yourself standing at the entrance of your house. Hey, this is how those ghost tests usually begin. Imagine your house and then walk through it. And if you see any ghosts in there, then it means a whole bunch of stuff. As if controlled by those words, I imagined myself standing in that house in the darkness. Black, the sharp image of that mountain cottage, the reddish-brown roof, the mountain cottage, yes, the atelier that an architect had built for himself. The walls were faded in a nice fashion and covered by vines to the second floor. The white paint had slightly chipped off of the wooden windowsills. The first floor was all a garage, and the second and third floors were built as living quarters. It had no kitchen, my rented house of 30,000 yen, and at night it began making a strange sound, and the next morning a number would be carved somewhere. 30,000 yen is cheap. I mean, I might stay in a haunted place for that. My legs began trembling, but I held them down with my hands. All right, when you've imagined it, place your hand on the doorknob. All right. Now, open the door. I opened the door. My shoes were sprawled out on the foyer. When I'd rushed out of the house, I'd kicked the leather shoes out of the way, but my feet refused to go further. I felt someone in the house, even though no one should be in it. The thick, sticky air, you might want to get that looked at, seemed to make me feel that way. Sticky air is probably not good. No, I didn't want to step forward, even if this was just my imagination. Seemingly noticing my emotions, Yoishi said, whispering, "Don't worry. Slowly move in. Take off your shoes as usual and step in. When you step in, I don't care what order, but open every window in your house." They are doing the ghost test. Neatly, one by one, without leaving a single one. Window? Why windows? I thought that, but I heeded her. I went by... What? There's so much missing punctuation. I went by the window in the living room, unlocked it, and opened it. And then, from there to the Japanese-style room I was using as a bedroom, I unlocked and opened the window. Then, from the Japanese-style room to the bathroom, opened. To the bath, opened. Then I progressed to the 3rd floor. There were 2 on the 3rd floor, by the veranda and next to my desk. I unlocked and opened both. I'm done. And now, close the windows in reverse order. They are doing the test. Huh? Close them in order, from the last one you opened. I actually have I think a Toshiden episode on this test if you're interested. See if I can dig up the link and drop it in the comments. Having no other choice, I did as she said. The window on the 3rd floor by the desk. Veranda. Then down to the 2nd floor, and, the bath, toilet, Japanese-style room, living quarters. I closed them all. Yes, done. Now open your eyes. Said Yoishi's voice, and I opened my eyes, and the light from the bright fluorescent lamps flooded into my eyes. Yes, I had paid no heed to them before, but the bright pop music from within the store also came into my ears. Translation is something special. Right, this was a family restaurant. I rubbed my eyes strongly when Yoishi asked me, "How was it?" What do you mean, how was it? What was the point of this? Was there anyone in the rooms? My hairs stood at those words. It's exactly the ghost test. There was. Dun dun dun. That was on the landing on the stairs between the 2nd and 3rd floors. Okay, not gonna lie, that's kind of creepy. A middle-aged man wearing ashen-coloured clothing seemed to have been there. Immobile, with an empty-ish face, just empty-ish. He watched over my every action with his staring eyes. I could never look straight at him, but he was always appearing at the edge of my sight. There was, wasn't there? Yoishi's black eyes dazzled with some sort of happiness. Was it someone you know? I don't know. I'd never seen him before. No. Could that be? To imagine someone that I'd never met before. That house still remained thick within my mind. What? As Yoishi's joyful voice echoed through the image. Scared? I looked, and Yoishi had come close enough to me that I could feel her breath. That's gross. Hey, are you feeling scared right now? Scared. Or rather, your eyes that look like they'll eat everything scare me. I'm sorry, what? Tell me more. What kind of person? I took a deep breath and explained as I tried to stop myself from trembling. A grey, worn suit. I didn't remember a necktie. The suit seemed a bit big, but that may have been because the man was thin. Yes, the man was thinned. He had white hair, and I couldn't remember the face. The hair was grown a bit long, without any care. He wore black shoes. And Yoishi was rubbing her chin, going, Yes. After some silence and glancing about at nothing with her eyes, she looked at me once more. How do you glance at nothing? Hey, how about we go? Nani? To your house. Now. Why did this happen? It was a night with a beautiful moon, and I was dangerously peddling the mamachari. I passed through the residential area to the north of the train station near the family restaurant, then continued west along the grooved river. I'm sorry, what is a grooved river? The grooved river was called Shimokawa and was one of the rivers that flowed into the Tamagawa waterworks. This river gradually curved northeast and headed towards the area I lived. Every time my bike bounced off the bumpy road, Yoishi's body pressed against mine as she sat behind me. Ah, yes, it is one of those visual novels. I see. I could feel the slight... There it is. Told ya. I could feel the slight inflation of her breasts on my back through my jersey. And every so often I had misplaced thoughts of how we looked like a nice couple. There it is. However, what was hanging onto my back was a psycho girl, dressed entirely in black. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that's a bit rude. Her arms wrapped around my waist were oddly cold. Aren't girls supposed to have a higher body temperature? Wait, what? I thought dudes had higher body temperature because they have more muscle. Like soft, warm, and with a nice scent. However, I could hardly feel any heat from Yoishi, who was sitting at the rear of the seat of my bicycle. If it were to turn out that only I could see her, I wouldn't even be surprised. That's how far away from a date this nighttime bicycle rendezvous was. Yes. The residential area became distant, and in its stead came fields. The city lights became dim, and it felt like the number of stars increased, and the scent of grass became stronger. We were much closer to my home. Quite rural. Shut it. Rude. That was my response to Yoishi's line after some period of quiet. I don't mean it in a bad way. I didn't realize Musashino still had such a place. That's why I figured the rent would be low. I vented a bit of my feelings. Okay. Of self-deprecation. Yes. Okay, the spelling is different this time. That's good. Self-depreciation. I really do like the art in this. It's nice. Houses became very scarce, and after passing by several old temples, we entered an area dense with trees. By following this narrow path, we would arrive at that house. To be honest, I don't want to go at night. When I said that behind me, it only happens at night, so we should go at night. Yoishi readily replied. A very sound argument. What? For a while we remained wordless until Yoishi asked, "What was your wish?" "Nani?" "Because you're painstakingly living in the house that grants wishes, aren't you?" Painstakingly. Or rather, I just had no money. Same. Nothing special. I hoped that my family's business would go well. That's all. I answered. Surprisingly, you think of your family. Just tear him straight down. Yoishi commented without giving any trace of emotion. Surprisingly, you think of people. Surprisingly is pretty harsh, I began replying, but then we saw that house beyond the Black Forest. That. Yeah. Looking over it again, I was amazed at how I rented such a house. Looking at it now, no matter who looked at it, it looked completely like a haunted house. Alright, well, actually, we're going to end this episode right here. We have finally reached the house. We have finally met Yoishi, the strange and mysterious figure who it turns out is just a goth girl who likes lurking outside family restaurants. These things happen. Alright, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Join us again next week to find out what is going on with this very strange house and this very strange story. I'll see you guys then. See ya. Welcome back. As I slid the mamachari into the first floor garage, Yoishi jumped off the rear seat of the bike. Oh, that's right, we've just gotten back home. Finally, we're at the haunted house. When she pressed the switch on the steel column, the light on the ceiling of the garage turned on. That was all it took to reduce my fear. Yoishi began walking about on her own. Wow, she can walk on her own, looking at the building from several angles. A magnificent building, she said, and then she began walking ahead of me. She climbed the stairs to the entrance on the second floor. Not having any other choice, I placed one foot on the stairs, but could go no further. I really like the art in the background. Very creepy. As for Yoishi, she quickly climbed the stairs, opened the door without permission, and glanced inside. Ah, right. Now that I think about it, I flew out without locking the door. That means I'd left it unlocked for several days, which was very careless of me. Well, I mean, if it's in the middle of nowhere, then I doubt anybody went there. I was just looking up from the bottom of the stairs. It was pretty shameful, but I'm the one that experienced the fear. I'd say it's perfectly normal for an animal to not want to get any closer unless safety is ensured. How is it? Dark. Yes. Well, of course. Better, of course. And with that, Yoishi quickly went inside. I was afraid of being left at the bottom of the stairs, so I rushed after Yoishi. When I opened the entrance door, the inside was already lit, it's litty, with electricity. Yoishi stood straight next to the lamp switch, glancing around from the ceilings to the walls. Light is great. Put that on a shirt. I felt calmed just by it being bright, to the point of not knowing whether those creepy happenings were reality. When I was about to take off my shoes at the foyer, I saw that Yoishi's knee-high boots had already been taken off neatly. Yo, those pink shoes though. Gimme. She may surprisingly be well-to-do, I thought, but then it struck me. What does that even mean? That come to think of it, we hadn't even properly introduced ourselves. Hey, it's belated, but... Full stop. I turned toward Yoishi and said, I go by Nagi online. My real name is Yamada Nagito. I'm a freshman at university this spring. That's a first grader, right? A freshman? She didn't turn around. She nodded and then said, which would make him what, 18, 19? I'm Yoishi. Isn't that a handle? Wrong. My surname is Mitsurugi. Not that it matters. Indeed. Mitsurugi, Yoishi. She continued being odd. She used her real name online and then didn't care for her surname. What? Go was on the wall of the toilet, ? However, as if to say that it was a waste of time, she asked that, and so I pointed to the far end of the second floor. Translation sure is something. Yoishi silently went there, as you do. Without hesitating, she opened the door, turned on the light, and peered in. I quietly followed. Right? It looks like the letter go, right? It's not a, how do I pronounce this again? Schema? Schema? I'm gonna say schema. Please correct me in the comments, right? I said to Yoishi's back. You know of words such as schema, schema? She replied as if being condescending. No, I actually don't. I know someone explained it earlier, but I forget. Well, I mean, I am an occult maniac. That was a lie. It was information I just received. In a state where you've received a specific set of information, when you see a meaningless figure, your brain follows the information to create a suitable schematic. Schema? Schematic? That is schema in cognitive science, but this is without a doubt go. Even I see it that way. Yes. Yoishi said, not caring for my words, as she traced her fingers over the engraving. Well, it wasn't like determining that it wasn't schema. How many times am I going to use this word that I don't know how to say? Solved anything. If anything, it made things worse. If this was truly a deliberately written go, then someone wrote that in this house. Or rather, something. And that was in the house. What? Who put that down and said, yes, this is the sentence. Doku was near the bath. I like that they didn't bother translating that either. If you don't read Japanese, then just, go screw yourself. Having finished observing go, Yoishi went across the hall to the bathroom with the toilet, turned on the light, and opened the door. She placed her face right next to the symbol engraved into the windowsill. When I followed behind Yoishi, I smelled something odd. I'm not gonna ask. Truth be told, it had been bothering me since I met Yoishi. Oh no, she's stinky and doesn't bathe. But now that I was in an enclosed space with her, it'd become clear. Are you wearing some sort of perfume? Yoishi wordlessly shook her head. No, but this smell. What? That doesn't even make any sense. And then I realized what that smell was. Your mama. I'd smelled it in rooms during middle school. Ew. A sour, nose-curdling smell. That is just not something I wanted to read today. As if something was rotting. That's gross. I totally understand. This is a rude thing to ask a girl, but do you bathe? I pinched my nose as I asked. Yeah, that's gonna make it better. When did you last take a bath? And then Yoishi turned around and looked at me quizzically. Brah. And then she looked at the ceiling. And when she seemed like she was searching through distant memories, I had a bad feeling. This is so strangely written. Not the translation even. The story is just weirdly written. You have to think about it. I don't quite remember, but maybe last month. Ew, she's rank. What the hell? Take a bath. A bath. Yo, I can smell that from here. This is, a bathroom. That's not what I mean. Do you not take showers? Clean your hair? Ew, she's greasy. What does that have to do with this number going down? Yo, if I have to be in your presence, please bathe. It's a very simple request. Yoishi seemed completely bewildered as she asked me, but come on, I'd heard about dirty girls and I know French royalty were famous for never taking a bath. What? But this is contemporary Japan. What does French royalty have to do with this? Do high school girls that don't take a bath for a month exist? I mean, I'm sure they do somewhere. What you say lacks reason. No, you. She said flatly, and then peered closely at the windowsill again. That got really weird. It is without a mistake a roku. And then she turned around and asked, how about Nana? She, really, had no interest. Why are there commas there? Had no interest in anything other than the paranormal. I sighed and helplessly guided her. Indeed. That was on the landing towards the third floor. That was where the middle-aged man I didn't know was standing during the what? The suspected association game Yoishi had made me play earlier. The what now? Where did that translation come from? I didn't want to follow her there, so I gestured over there. Yoishi wordlessly climbed the stairs and then leaned towards the wall. Same. That looks like Nana too, right? However, Yoishi didn't immediately answer, instead taking a mini light from her pocket, shined it at the letter Nana, and looked all around it. Is something wrong? Ooh, nice art. This is certainly Nana, but odd. No, you. What's odd? I was about to ask. Ew! What the? Hello? Suddenly Yoishi vomited. Okay. Wait, what? She didn't... Okay, excuse me. Are we all seeing this same sentence that I am? Are we seeing this? She didn't do anything cute, like place a hand to her mouth in an effort to hold it back. I'm sorry, but if somebody is vomiting and they're placing a hand over their mouth and you're saying that that's cute, I'm not going to judge you. You do you. But rather, standing tall, with her arms folded, she boldly vomited, which definitely made me take a step back. I'm sorry, what are we reading? What are we looking at? What is happening here? I am so confused. Used to vomiting. I'm assuming they're meaning like she is used to vomiting. I don't know why they cut out the words there. That's how it seemed, and I completely saw it through. What? I am incredibly confused by this whole thing I'm looking at. Dripping vomit. You're welcome. Sparkling intestinal fluid and the remnants of the orange juice. Oh, this is gross. She'd been doing... I'm sorry, but I did not wake up today and see that I would be reading the words dripping vomit, sparkling intestinal fluid. There's a shirt in that somewhere. What was with her? What is happening? Sparkling intestinal fluid. Doesn't take baths. Takes vomits out in the open. Can we stop talking about vomit? It's going to make me vomit. And loves the occult and wears coats during the spring. A psychotic girl. No, you. However, I finally noticed that the psychotic girl did seem to be struggling a bit. Hey, are you alright? She just projectile vomited all over your stairs. She's probably not okay. I ran to her and began rubbing her back, and she powerlessly nodded, then wiped her mouth. Oh, please stop talking about it. There was vomit on the landing, but she resumed conversing. I'm sorry, what? As if nothing had ever happened. That's incredibly gross. I thought it was strange since when you wrote your post. What? I thought it was strange since when you wrote your post. Okay. I wonder why the countdown began from Nana. Huh? Same. Normally countdowns should start from 10 or 9. How should I know? I mean, ghosts are scary because you don't know what they're thinking. How would a human like me know why something like that began counting down from Nana? Wrong. No. The paranormal have no rules, but the other side has intentions, as befitting of the other side. Yoishi said as she climbed the stairs. I had no choice but to follow. As if to say there must be an hachi and a kyu somewhere, Yoishi turned on the lights to the 3rd floor and began peering at the walls. Her posture, as she crawled about on all fours, she just threw up, and she didn't even rinse out her mouth. Like, are they just going to leave that vomit to fester on the stairs? Scampering along the walls was both creepy and comical. Afterwards, Yoishi began mumbling to herself and didn't respond to me, so I gave up and went back to the 2nd floor. Please clean up the vomit. I poured water from the sink next to the toilet into a bucket and threw a rag in. Oh, do I have to look at it? After all, this is my house, and while I couldn't forget the hollow face of the middle-aged man I saw at the family restaurant, I tried not to think about it and cleaned up the vomit. I'm sorry, but if you throw up in my house, you're cleaning it up. Ugh, why does vomit smell so bad? Sparkling intestinal fluid. Somehow it always entices you to vomit too. Not sure I'd use the word entice here, but indeed. And it was irritating that the one who vomited seemed to not care at all. Can we please move on? As if it was obvious that it would be my job to clean after her. Whew. Hey, do you not eat? There's only liquid in this. Please, can we move on? I said with a bit of a nasty tone. But Yoishi, who'd come back down from the 3rd floor, simply mumbled that there was no hachi or kyu anywhere. I snapped at her totally depressed reaction. I said there was none. But she ignored my comment and began looking at the walls on the 2nd floor. Half exasperated, I watched over her as I went down to the 2nd floor with the rag and bucket. Then I looked at the clock and asked her, "Hey, are you all right being out at this hour?" Of course, that was pretty belated, given that it was almost 3 a.m. If I were her parents, I'd be beside myself with anger. I hope you called home before coming out at this hour. I mean, I know it's my fault this is happening, but parents are always worried. I always thought my parents were annoying when I was at home, but once you go away, you feel gracious for it. What is with the dopey face? However, she wasn't listening to my lecture. I noticed that she was completely immobile, staring at a single point. Yo mama! What is it? I asked, but Yoishi didn't move. She stood still, frozen like a mannequin. I stood behind Yoishi and looked where she was looking. That was where Yoishi had vomited. And was exactly where the middle-aged man was standing in my imagination that I only knew about. Wait a second. Who are you doing a staring match with? When I placed a hand on her shoulder, she twitched as if a curse had been lifted. And then she whispered, ever so softly, "Naruhodo, I see." When she turned around, her face was filled with joy. I could tell by the slight blush creeping into her pale face that she was excited. Probably just happy that she shed her sparkling intestinal fluid all over your stairs. Hey, did you notice? No. What? But Yoishi didn't respond, instead turning on her heel and heading towards the foyer. Hey, wait! Ada, wait! Let's get out. She quickly put on her deep black boots and then walked straight out of the entrance. I hurriedly put on my sneakers and chased after her. I tried not to look inside as I turned off the light, closed the door, and remembered to lock it this time. I stuck close by Yoishi as she staggered down the stairs. When we walked near where the mamachari was parked inside the garage, Yoishi looked up at the building once more and said, "This building is very interesting." After all that, this building is very interesting. Incredibly underwhelming. What are you talking about? Under the stairs to the 3rd floor. There's a meaningless space. The translation is hilarious, but that's actually really creepy. No thank you. That moment, I felt a chill travel down my spine. Going on a trip down the spine. I see. Naruhodo ne. The eeriness that I'd felt all along about this house. I finally understood it. I'm sorry, but that really is actually creepy. Like that creeps me out. Empty spaces like a room beneath the stairs that you don't know about. No thank you. Indeed, it had always felt like something was odd about this house. And that was the area under the stairs, which I could never reach. You couldn't enter the space under the stairs from either the outside or inside of the house. You hear about places that don't open sometimes. This was similar in that we didn't know what was inside. Time to get the sledgehammer. And look at this. Yoishi pointed at the mailbox by the stairs in front of the 1st floor. My full name was written on a piece of paper the size of a business card, and 3 lines had been carved in as if to overwrite my name. What? It was unmistakable. Oh, that's nice. Whoa. It's moving. Dun dun dun. 3 suns. The countdown continued. We're getting closer. Yoishi placed her face almost right onto the engravings and mumbled happily, "This place is real." But I said with a hollow voice, "I'm at my limit." Like the text sets up like this big revelation, this amazing quote is going to happen, and it even comes out like word by word, dun 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 dun, and then you see it and it's, "I'm at my limit." Indeed. You sure are. You can do it, buddy. Fall. I thought it was like fall as in autumn. It's fall as in drop. Naruhodo ne. Naruhodo. Wait, we moved? The new apartment was fantastic. Wait, what? I'm confused. The pretty, cleaned flooring, the new wallpaper, the sterilized unit bath. Oh yeah, I love me a sterilized unit bath. It wasn't right comparing it to that house where the previous inhabitants' remnants drifted everywhere. That was a sentence. But I definitely learned that it wasn't right to skimp on housing expenses. Why did we move on from the haunted house so fast? I want to go back. That was interesting. This was even further from the university, but houses were nearby. Maybe we'll go back. I will hold hope. I could walk to a convenience store and there were plenty of streetlights. This apartment, which was brightly lit even at night, was introduced to me by Karasu. From what I heard, one of Karasu's acquaintances was the landlord for this apartment, and she was renting a room here too. It annoyed me a bit that the room was simply a warehouse, a place to put paranormal cursing equipment apparently, for her, but I couldn't complain. Wait, I want paranormal cursing equipment? Where do I get that? Rent rocketed to 50,000 yen. I mean, it's still not much. But it was 6 tatami 1K with a loft and a unit bath, so it was extremely cheap for the area, seriously. It had been 1 week since I looked at that paranormal house with Yoishi. Okay, so 1 week has passed and he's moved. That was quick. Right after noon on a Sunday, on a rare day with no part-time work and no lectures. I opened the window and took in the comfortable breeze as I sprawled out in the empty room. The previous week had passed by quickly. First, I cried to my big sister and borrowed some money and immediately moved here. As you do. I didn't want to enter that house ever again, and it was expensive having to hire people, but it was worth it. Furthermore, this apartment's walls were so thin that you would almost instinctively want to pick up your neighbor's ringing phones. Can't say I'd ever want to do that, which made it feel like you were among living people, and you could greet people in the hallways, and if you opened the windows, you could hear the lackadaisical voice of the bamboo pole merchants. That's a sentence I read. Basically, this place was overflowing with life. Sounds terrible. For me, that was extremely important. As I'd been drained of mental energy to the extremes, I required the comfort of living amidst people. I never met Yoishi again. She just projected her vomit all over your stairs, and then you never saw her again. That night, I gave her a lift to the family restaurant and parted ways. Yo girl, you stank. Take a bath. Everything about her was a mystery, other than the fact she was a high school student and that her real name was Mitsurugi Yoishi. Indeed, I spoke with her a bit as I escaped to the train station, but I never found out what was going on with that house. She didn't try to explain, and I wasn't in any hurry to ask. I mean, wasn't that the whole point, to find out the mystery of the house? Okay. However, I had a strange conviction that something bad was there. Yeah. Duh. Every night, I heard something eerie, and I even ate a countdown. I'm sorry, what? I ate a countdown. I'm not even sure what that was supposed to have been. How do you eat a countdown? But mostly I believed it because of Yoishi's one phrase, "This place is real." That this was not a place I could deal with. I'm so confused by 8 a countdown. I immediately thought that. If you think about it that way, she was why I was able to make the decision to place myself in such a peaceful place. But it was true what they say, that when the blade is no longer to your throat, you regain your curiosity. I can't say I've ever heard that saying. Now that it was all in the past, I was truthfully somewhat curious. Yes, go back to the house. What did she notice? What was the countdown? And how does one eat it? What is Yoishi anyways? Well, that's a bit rude. It was hard to explain, but she seemed different from just an occult maniac. It wasn't like she was getting a thrill out of coming close to danger, but rather, she seemed to have no instinct telling her to avoid dangerous areas. In other words, it was hard to explain her as anything but someone wanting to die. Whenever she said something, I felt like the world I believed and lived in was about to crumble apart. Sometimes I would take a peek at Ikai Gabuchi, but Yoishi never appeared in a thread. And of course, no one reacted to the thread I'd started, and it had been buried deep to the point where I didn't want to revive it. Krishna descended upon various threads, but he never touched on my or Yoishi's case. That was real. I wanted to write, but I had no means of proving myself, and I myself felt fuzzy about it, so I kept myself to an ordinary life. Take a shot every time he says myself. Indeed, daily life continued. An increased living expense and an abundance of light and heat. My scholarship was insufficient, so I began working part-time at an Italian restaurant near the train station. Nice. I wanted to pay back the moving funds that I'd borrowed from my big sis too, so I started working whenever I had no lectures. My city survival began as I worked myself to exhaustion, same, and flung a tired smile everywhere. I feel that. A week flew by, and it was that sort of day. My first university lecture in a while had just ended, and I was stuffing my textbooks into my bag when I realized a girl I recognized was staring at me. Hello. She was short. Oh, okay. Yet her breasts were big enough to notice through her clothing. Indeed, we are indeed one of those visual novels. Her hair was cut, straight, like a zashiki warashi. Can't say that's what I would have thought of, but okay. And her face resembled that of a young middle schooler, matching her red-framed glasses. Who's that? I stared right back at her, and she cleared her throat once, ahem, and then came over. Okay. She started taking something out of her pocket, then put it back, as you do. I saw that it was some sort of paper. Interesting. She walked to me, standing straight and still, and in the end, never took out that piece of paper. Truly fascinating. She had a bit of a vexed expression as she glared at me, although her babyish face made it lose its bite, and then clicked her tongue, and then turned away. Just normal human interactions. Hey! I couldn't stop myself from calling out to her. What do you want? Speak up. Oh, she's angry. She angry. The straight-haired girl turned back around and said, Baka. Indeed. Idiot? No, you! Despite being mild-mannered, I wasn't one to stand being insulted by a girl I'd never met before. Wait, did he just say he recognized her? Alright. Why are you being so rude? What's your name? What grade are you? Oh, she angry. I asked, but she simply snapped back, Urse! Shut up. Alright. This is the perfect spot to end this episode. Come back next week to find out who this angry girl is. I like her attitude, but I'm so confused by everything because none of this is just perfectly normal human interactions. Alright, well, I'm enjoying the story. I'm not going to lie. The story itself is fascinating. I want to know what's beneath the stairs. I want to know what the countdown is and how do you eat one. But anyway, come back next week and let's find out. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode and I will see you again then. See ya. Welcome back. It's your fault to begin with. No, you. What's my fault? Oh, she's pointing. Oh no. And then she pointed her small index finger at me. How dare she? It's because of scum like you that these things keep happening like this. Learn your place, fool. Yeah, you tell him. Fool? Why, you... After that, she rapidly asked me. Do your shoulders ache? Do your ears ring? Are you able to sleep at night? I mean, yes. Yes. No. Oh no, am I haunted? That would explain everything. Was she some sort of doctor's apprentice? We are indeed living in the Middle Ages. Did this university even have a medical college? While I was bewildered, the girl finally pulled out the piece of paper from her pocket. She stuck it under my nose. I had no time to take it as she ran off like a rabbit, as you do, and by the time I picked it up, she had already left the classroom. Just normal human interactions. The hell was that? No one was left in the classroom by then, so I looked at the piece of paper I held. Oh, it's upside down, I can't read it. It was like a handmade business card. There it is. It just read, what? Beatnik Research Club President. Oh, it actually says that in Japanese, Beatnik. What? Kurimoto Shina. And had the location of the Beatnik Research Club situated on the Western Wing. Wow. All right. That night, I saw a dream. Sorry. In my dream, I was still living in that house. The old 3-story mountain cottage by the riverbank. I mean, haunted or not, that was a nice house. And it was cheap. Like, why would you give that up? You just got free roommates. There, I was looking at myself. No, that's creepy as hell. It was like I'd spiritually departed from my body. Yes, I do that daily. And was floating in space and was gazing upon me living my life. The me down there showed no signs of noticing me and continued living normally. Spiritually departed from my body. It seemed I was watching a bit of the past. Wait, so I was the ghost all along? It seemed I was watching a bit of the past. I was living carefree as I hadn't learned of the fear of the noises at night. Am I the one doing the engravings so I can eat the countdown? It was me all along? Hey, come on, stop with this house. What? Stop with this house. You stop with this house right now. I wanted to tell him, but as a person just drifting in a dream, there was nothing I could do. All I could do was observe. Eventually, I noticed that Yoishi was sitting next to me. The two of us were sitting together on the old sofa I'd picked up after moving. The two of us didn't speak to each other, instead just going on with our lives individually. Okay. Did she bathe yet? I was yawning as I watched a TV, because I have several, while she was just quietly reading an old book. It was just a dream, so it was free to make up any situation it wanted, but I still thought it was odd. However, I also accepted that if I were to live together with her, neither of us would really interfere with the other. I would interfere. Take a bath. Stop vomiting on my stairs. Eventually, the me down there got bored of the TV and proceeded to stretch, watch his face, and brushed his teeth. I thought about studying a bit, but instead, I just immediately went to sleep. As I observed myself as an outsider, I realized that I was a pretty boring person. Get wrecked. I boasted that I would turn the fortunes of my family's lumber business that was downtrodden and had departed Shizuoka in opposition of my father and big sister, failed to get into the seminar I wanted, and wandered occult sites. This man is living the dream. Plus, I hadn't even written a single letter to my mother, who I'd promised to send letters to after coming to Tokyo. Okay, now, that's not okay. Write some letters to your mother. Finally, I'd moved into a haunted house because of the low rent and run into a psychotic girl. I wanted to slap myself. As I sighed and glared, I quickly curled up in my bedroom. Even though Yoishi was there, it seemed I could not see her as I turned off the light. Yoishi seemed to notice the light had gone off. Yes, as you would, especially if she was reading a book. As she closed her book and stared off into space. I floated down to Yoishi, thinking I'd turn the light on for her. It's about time. I had a bad feeling from Yoishi's words. And then... Nani? In the darkness, with only moonlight illumination, I heard that sound. From somewhere, the sound of something being scraped. An ominous melody ringing across the border connecting this world and the other. As if something was trying to crawl out of a sealed dimension. As I heard that sound, my body slowly froze. It was like watching those supernatural shows on TV where they set up a camera in rooms that ghosts are rumored to appear. This dream, isn't it bad? I need to wake up as soon as possible. Because if I stay here like this, I would see the something that was engraving numbers into this house. Dun, dun, dun. I frantically tried to wake up. I waved my limbs around trying to touch something, but I could not wake myself from the dream. It was like my body had been caught by some black hand seeping out of a different world. Feeling the despair of having been locked into a room with no exit, within the dream, only my panting echoed, and suddenly I found myself next to Yoishi. On the old leather sofa, Yoishi and I were embracing each other. Why does it have to get weird? Ew. As if I were trying to... What? Excuse me? No. That was my wish, and yet it wasn't. As if I were trying to stain both of my palms with Yoishi's body temperature. I played with her body. Are we all seeing this nonsense? Excuse me? I mean, of course I had some interest in girls as a simple 18-year-old boy, but my lusting wasn't this twisted. What are we reading? What? I wasn't the type to release my sexual lusts by turning myself into an unseen existence. What are we reading? What is going on? I'm so... what? I was pretty sure I had that much reason in me anyways. Okay. However, Yoishi showed no signs of fear. Joke's on you, she's into that. If anything, she was in a state of ecstasy. This is just reminding me of that scary movie scene with the ghost. You know the one I'm talking about. If you don't, go watch it. Her expression was dangerous. I felt my reason making sounds as it broke apart. I'm sorry, what? I felt my reason making sounds as it broke apart. I don't even vaguely understand what that's trying to say. Do we have to? Really? Do we have to? Is this entirely necessary? Come on. No! I am not reading this. Absolutely not. You can feel free to read it yourself. We are not doing this. We are not doing this. Stop, stop, stop. I screamed. Yes. Scream. I almost screamed. My arms were not ones I'd become accustomed to seeing, but rather were long and thin, if anything like that of an aged man. Those sleeves were grey and worn. I was wearing an old suit. I felt like I faintly smelled some cologne. I stretched out my trembling arms and felt my face, my nose, my lips. We all know how the rest of that sentence goes. And what I felt was hideously not mine. That's a bit rude. It was definitely that of someone else. And I knew whose it was. Who? Him. Dun dun. That man existing at the edge of my vision. And finally, my face tilted against my will. Hey, I was reading that. My face pointed towards the window ahead, towards the moonlight, and my eyes locked with the man covering Yoishi. That instant, I lost consciousness. Along with incredible trembling, I woke up. It was my new apartment with the abnormally bright lighting from the lamp. To my side was a coffee table with the empty box of the convenience store meal I'd just eaten and an unfinished bottle of oolong tea. Near my pillow, textbooks and notebooks for university had been tossed about. There was a cheap curtain between me and the sash to the small veranda. And it swayed a bit from the night breeze coming through a gap in the sash. That is such a strange way to describe something. Like I'm befuddled. There was a cheap curtain, okay, between me and the sash to the small veranda. Yes. I breathed deeply. My heart was still pounding. I came home from work, ate a bit, but was it a countdown? And then had fallen asleep. F off with scaring me. I felt malice towards no one in particular and grabbed the bottle. Finally, they included the S. I gulped down the third or so that was left of the oolong tea. I felt incredibly thirsty, and even the lukewarm oolong tea tasted delicious. When I finished, I felt a bit calmer, and I scratched my hair as I exhaled sharply. I mean, is all of this exposition really necessary? Really? Calm down. Just a dream. It was just 2 weeks ago. It's not surprising to have some fear still in my heart. That's why I saw that dream. That's all. Bum bum. Bum bum. I mumbled to myself in an effort to persuade myself, but my heart didn't stop pounding. I could still feel Yoishi's soft body in my hands. Stop talking about it. I don't want to know. Then I realized that something was ringing in my head. It was like a phone from next door, like a cell phone in my pocket was still ringing, a quiet but definite warning sound. How could it be ringing but quiet? What's bothering you? I looked around. New white wallpaper surrounded me, and there was just a spacious vacant room that I hadn't been able to fill with furniture. Nothing had changed between before and after I'd slept. Such a strange way to word it. However, the bell inside my head kept ringing. What is it? I stood up and looked around the room again. There was nothing out of the ordinary. The after effects of a scary dream were just bothering me, that's all. Da-da-da-dan! I was trying to think that when I noticed it. Next to the wall was a ladder leading to a small loft. The lighting for the loft was different, so it was slightly dark there. Just then, I felt something cold travel down my spine. Hey guys, we're going on a journey again! Down the spine! Why did I pick a place with a loft? That dark area where it felt like someone might jump out at me. Where it felt like someone might jump out at me from. Gave me bad thoughts, please. However, it felt like the warning inside me was directed straight at the loft. I used to live in a Leo Palace apartment that had a loft, and it was great. I like those things. I like the cozy little spaces to sleep in because, those apartments are really not very big. I mustered the courage to look up, and the warning sound grew louder. I swallowed once and turned on the light to the loft next to the ladder. I placed a foot on the ladder, climbing it one step at a time. And then I willed myself to look into the loft. Of course, there was no one in the loft. Loft. The only thing there was a cheap sleeping bag I'd bought instead of a blanket, and a number of books that were scattered about. Ha ha ha. I breathed with relief, and was just about to climb back down when I noticed it. On the other side of the sleeping bag, at the furthest wall, I saw something. Dun dun dun! Wounds? Really? Wounds? That's the word we're going with? 2 lines had been violently drawn. Yes, I screamed a silent scream as I tumbled from the ladder. I made a loud sound as my knee and shoulders struck the ground, but I didn't care. Somehow, I managed to grab my wallet and cell phone, and I jumped out of the door. Not lines. Those weren't lines. That was me. Two. The number knee. I had even moved, but the countdown continued. Yes. I can't wait to find out what happens when we get to 1. Yo, I'm not gonna lie, this music is kind of banging. I jumped into the night city and ran to a convenience store in search of light. As I ran, I tapped at my cell phone, accessing Ikai Gabuchi. And then I looked at the forum from end to end. I didn't care if it was Karasu or Su or Yoishi or anyone. I desperately looked for someone I knew. And then I saw it, no full stop, in a thread titled Mysterious Dimension, Star, Isejingu, a mere 30 minutes away. A mere 30 minutes ago, Yoishi had posted. Ignoring the serious discussion of how to see Yata no Kagami in the Koutai Jingu I posted there. Hey, Yoishi, help me. The occult maniacs who had their debate interrupted laughed at my spontaneous post, but I ignored them. Yoishi, you're reading this, aren't you? Talk to me. He's still following me. But, of course, Yoishi never answered, and it just angered the Isejingu maniacs. What? Family Mart. Sorry, Family Mart. Koemae. Even after reaching the convenience store, I looked around Ikaigabuchi while I was in the parking lot. I tried writing in places that Yoishi might find interesting, to contact me immediately. Don't worry, you can probably smell her when she's coming. But maybe I'd posted too often because the entire forum rose up in arms calling me a spammer. Not a spammer! If I got banned, I'd have trouble contacting her, so I started responding, No, you! I'm not a spammer. I'm seriously in trouble. But people just coolly responded that I was spamming. Eventually, others began calling me wannabe. What is going on? And I got pissed off and shouted at them, You scum occult maniacs! And the flames continued. Just normal human interactions. It was like 100 versus 1 as the flames continued being spat. Oh, they spit in fire! Right as I was feeling like the world was against me and I was about to slam my phone against the ground. Are you Nuggy? Someone wrote that. When I looked at the name, it said Krishna. That name was like a miracle descending upon me, and I almost crumbled to the ground. He's a bit of a drama queen. I tried to type a response, but my fingers were trembling too much. As I struggled like that, Krishna posted again, and it said, Come to the place written on the card I gave you this afternoon. It was her all along! Oh! Get wrecked. It was past 2 a.m. I'd left my mamachari behind, so I plodded my weight to the university on foot. Of course, the front gate was closed, and the security guard looked at me suspiciously. No, you! In an effort to escape from that look, I took a wide arc and then went along the fencing towards the line of Zelkova trees on the left. I have one of those. I love them. After you walk a bit here, you get to the western wing, which housed the Beatnik Research Club room. Goddamn beatniks. Kurimoto Shina. Krishna. Ah, naruhodo ne. Naruhodo ne. I was so careless. I noticed nothing, same, that the administrator of Ikaigabuchi, Krishna, was a person who attended the same university. And for that baby-faced girl to be Krishna was unimaginable. I went straight to the furthest room and was shocked when I entered. There were still some students inside chatting with each other. I felt a bit exasperated, as though this was some sort of Never Night Castle. I'm sorry, what? But I guess this was just the way it was for students, and so I felt a bit embarrassed about myself still being afraid of ghosts. What is a Never Night Castle? Is that something I want to know? Maybe not. My feet felt heavy as I arrived at the Beatnik Research Club on the 3rd floor, and I saw light on the other side of the smoked glass. I knocked on the door and heard a familiar voice. So I said, "It's Nagi, Yamada Nagito." "It's open." "Excusez-moi." When I opened the door, I found myself facing an empty, concrete-walled room of about 10 tatamis. That's one way to describe it. There was a single steel cabinet placed against a wall. In the middle was a relatively large work table. And there were 4 seats placed around the table and 3 people seated. How convenient. In the middle. Nice shoes. Was the baby-faced girl who'd given me a business card in my classroom. The red-framed glasses were as odd as usual, but she was wearing what seemed to be a priestess outfit stained in black, had on a takageta and sat on a seat. This suited her too well. I had no interest in such types, but I could almost understand how people who like lollies and people who like cosplay felt, which was scary. I have nothing to say. Are you Krishna? I asked, and the girl made a disdainful face, same, and nodded. I warned you to leave that house immediately. Huh? Karasu told you nothing? Nothing at all. And then Krishna cutely clicked her tongue and said, "Welcome in." I looked around the room again, and next to the small occult site administrator was a woman who seemed to be in their late 20s and did not seem like a student, wearing simple white Eastern clothing. I'm sorry, what? And a bald middle-aged man wearing monk attire who, no matter what, looked nothing at all like a student. Don't you judge people on whether they look like students based on their age? Come on, bruh. Huh? Same. I didn't know how to greet them, so I stood bewildered at the entrance, and Krishna made a motion with her small chin to sit there. I sat down on the chair that had been prepared for me, when the middle-aged monk stood behind me and grabbed my shoulders with his thick arms. Hey, what's going on? And then Krishna pushed her glasses up and asked, "Why are you trying to see the other side on your own accord?" Yes. And then she began lecturing me in a stern voice. All right. As long as we don't look, they can't see us either. You can have interest in the occult. It's natural and unavoidable of people to have interest in things that are little understood. Yes. Still, the other side has the other side's business. Of course. To them, not being able to see does not count as an excuse. Even if you can't see them, humans have enough power to be able to feel them. This is eerie. Then immediately understand that there's something you can't see and pay it due respect. I do enjoy a good word salad. In the face of her stern look, I, the fool, could understand. So basically, I've been possessed. I asked tearfully. At this rate, you're pretty screwed. She tells it how it is. Her expression became ever sterner, and I froze. "Krishna," said a woman in white clothes. She had no makeup on and held a strangely shaped rosary in her hand. It's already gotten a bit inside. Indeed. What? What inside? Can you pull it out here? Okay. I'll try. Getting a bit weird. The two of them finished their strange conversation. Wait, Krishna. Ada, wait. Who are these two? I asked as I tried to escape from the strong monk. Investigators for Ikai Gabuchi, answered Krishna bluntly. Investigators? I'll explain later. Just shut up and stay still. Don't mind me coming in. It's not use. The host isn't here. I heard a female voice from far away. We have to go to that house. We have to go back. Back to the past. Samurai Jack. You're right. The middle-aged man and Krishna's voice also echoed a bit, like a record that was losing some speed. I'd begun to slump down. The monk was strong, but that wasn't the only reason. It was as if I had never noticed that I was on the verge of toppling over under extreme weight. And as soon as I realized that, my body's senses frantically tried to show me the level of exhaustion I felt. Yes, I felt that sort of exhaustion, one that tried to sink me into a bottomless pit. You can't move, then don't move. Just put it on a shirt, all of it. You can't move, then don't move. Words to live by. Krishna said in a mysteriously kind voice, and then I lost consciousness. These things happen. To be honest, I don't remember much after that. I think I was loaded into a car. And then I think there was a lot of shaking. My consciousness came back because I felt a familiar sense of cold on my skin, one that seemed to want to wring me dry. My body was still heavy and my consciousness felt like mud, but my life instincts seemed to shout, "This place is bad!" When I came to, I was in front of that house. The middle-aged man was carrying me on his back, climbing up the stairs to the second floor. That is a strong monk. No, I don't want to come here anymore. I wanted to shout, but in reality, I couldn't even move my fingertips. Not caring for my will, I was carried forth by the middle-aged man and stood in front of the entrance to that house alongside Krishna and the white-clothed woman. Krishna easily opened the door. I thought I'd locked the door, but it opened without a key. Inside glowed an ethereal light. "Who?" said Krishna sharply. "Indeed." Alright, we're going to end this episode here. We are finally going back to the house. We got more of the countdown. I am excited for where this story is going. I want to know who this guy in the house is and why he's potentially living under the stairs as a ghost when he can just go anywhere that he wants. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Come back next week to find out who. I'll see you then. See ya. Welcome back. Who? Said Krishna sharply. Alright. I forced shut my resistant eyelids. No, I don't want to see. I didn't care who was inside. I didn't want to deal with any more. I give up. I decided right there and then. If I were able to wake up safely tomorrow, I would go straight back home to Shizuoka. Probably a good idea at this point. In the end, it was impossible for me to live alone in the demonic city Tokyo. I want that anime. I wanted to turn around the fortunes of my family business and came to Tokyo to study for it, but I'm too much of a wuss to live alone. Indeed, I'm better off living in the rural area surrounded by family and friends. My father and sister who opposed my decision were right, after all. Mother supported me, but I felt apologetic toward her. But I tried. I tried my best. But these happenings, I couldn't expect them, and I could do nothing. Come inside and close the door. Someone said from inside the house. I recognized that voice. Cold, clear, but somehow decisive. If you want to know what's to happen, then you should do that. Right, this voice. Yoishi. My whisper echoed through the silence. Yoishi? Yoishi's lackadaisical voice saying good evening overlapped Krishna's incredulous voice. The word choices in this are certainly something. There was a spare key near the sewer entrance below. So I used that to come in. What? Okay, yes. Let's go in. At Krishna's voice, the middle-aged man entered the foyer while carrying me, and then he took off his shoes and continued to the living quarters. Krishna and the white-clothed woman followed behind. When I looked past the middle-aged man's shoulder, I saw Yoishi already sitting in the middle of the empty living quarters with a candle inside an empty can. The dim light came from that. Who are you? What are you doing here? Krishna sounded as if she were scolding, but Yoishi answered that word again. Quiet. If you brought that person here, then you too already understand what's going on in this house. Oh yeah, she brought the people from that club. I really like that outfit. Yoishi, I see. Krishna groaned. You're Yoishi. You're the child posting on Ikaigabuchi. Yoishi continued her silence, but Krishna clicked her tongue and continued. I have no problem with you having interest in the occult, but having interest in actually tiptoeing the edge is different. You should realize that you're playing in a hazy boundary. Who says these things? Why does her face look so derp? No worries. Yoishi flatly responded to Krishna's harsh tone. I have confidence only in that conviction. That is absolutely something I would say. Absolutely. Wow. She's undeterred by this angry Krishna. Almost said angy again. Angry. This is why girls are scary. My big sis was scary too, and when mother snapped, she was scarier than father. However, Krishna sounded a bit lonely. I know. I've seen children like you before. That's why I say it. People who harbor expectations from the depth of the darkness, they always drag humans into the darkness too, even if they don't mean to. Okay. That's extremely dangerous. The middle-aged man slowly let me down from his shoulder and laid me by the wall in a sitting position, and I had nothing to do but listen to their conversation. Am I the only one who finds all of this just really, really weirdly, not even just worded, but like, none of these are actual human interactions that real people would have. My powerless body felt like it was being dragged about, and I could only feel an endless sense of helplessness. What happened here? What's happening here? And what's about to happen here? Everything was off the rail my life had been following. I could do nothing here. All I could do was listen to the creepy conversation and be an observer to a creepy act. It's so strange. However, more than the desire to learn the true, yes, I too wish to learn the true, my desire to run away was stronger. As soon as possible, I wanted to go out into a bright place. They keep talking about a bright place. Like, I get it. I understand what they're trying to say, but just, I wanted to go to a bright place sounds so funny. Krishna. Just then, the monk stepped in between the two. It started. Along with his words, that sound began. From somewhere in the building, that sound echoed. Scratch, 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 scratch. Indeed. As if overpowering everything, only that sound echoed. Scratch, scratch, scritch, scritch. Something was grinding together. Something was carving together. What? The sound was the loudest I'd heard. It was almost as if something was trying to crush this place from outside, and I frantically looked around. I was completely in tears, and only the creepy sound filled the world. Please stop. Forgive me. As I started tearfully screaming, Yoishi said, "Wonderful." Her happy voice entered my ears, and I became enraged. Yes, everything is going to hell. Wonderful. Wonderful? Are you seriously insane? It's beyond sanity to sneak into a house with a ghost milling about using a single candle and just sit there. Ah, I get it. You're that. You're like a friend of ghosts. Then great. Can you tell your friend to stop scaring me? I'm sorry for barging in on your house, but I didn't know. I cleaned up after myself and left, so stop bothering me and go away. I mean, tell the friend to stop following me to my new place and giving me a countdown. Yes, I have to eat the countdown. I don't know what sort of grudge they have against the world, but I'm completely unrelated, so stop. Tell them. That sure was a whole paragraph. Of course, my body wouldn't move, and neither would my mouth, but I begged Yoishi with my all. However, Yoishi didn't understand my feelings at all. Hey, scared? I heard an inexplicable, hopeful voice in my ear. It seemed Yoishi had come right next to me, but I couldn't open my eyes, so I screamed at her with my soul. I also do the same. Of course, I'm scared. I'm super scared. My body won't move, and I don't get it, and some sound is echoing through my head, and only psychos and ghosts are around me. Right, this house only has psychos now. A psychotic administrator that gathers and edits creepy articles. A psychotic woman holding some bizarre weapon despite being of age. What? Some psychotic baldy who seems to only have muscle building as a hobby. Same. And you, covered in, I was reading that, excuse me, and there's some douche ghost that never shows itself but does annoying pranks like carve numbers. Seriously, cut that shit out. Are you just enjoying your emergency offline meeting right now? You're all just waiting for me to pee my pants, aren't you? Hey, come on, cut it out. I was wrong. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to see those numbers anymore. Next is 1. Then what? What's next? I don't want to know. I mean, if you're going to kill me, just do it. Stop cornering me and shit. Well said. However, at some point, the sound had stopped. My dark world, with my tightly shut eyes, had become filled with silence. What happened? I became worried that everyone had left, but I was also afraid that if I were to open my eyes, something else would be there. Still, I couldn't just stay like this. I was tired. I'd begun to feel reckless. If you're going to kill me, kill me. I don't want to get cornered and hunted like this. Just give me a bad end already. This is me when I played Dead by Daylight. Just put me on the hook. I opened my tearful eyes, but I just saw a house, unchanged from before. And everyone was there. Krishna stood in front of the door to the bedroom. The white-clothed woman stood in the middle of the living room, with her eyes closed. The monk lingered by my side, and only Yoishi was looking at me with no emotion. Everyone was standing at the same spot they were before I closed my eyes. I gazed with my teary eyes at Yoishi's eyes, and then she nodded. And then she looked down. I followed her sight. To my feet. It's going to say 1, isn't it? Dun, dun, dun. As if cutting across the space between my feet, a thick wound had been carved into the floor. Ooh-ah! I screamed and pulled my sluggish body away. But my hip wouldn't respond. And so all I could do was flail in place. However, I tried to scramble away anyways. You know what's coming? It was Ichi. 1. The end. I'm tired of this. I want to go home. I want to go back to Shizuoka. Calm down, Nuggy, said Krishna. At some point, she'd started calling me Nuggy, but I didn't care as I tried to crawl away. I was too busy trying to flee from the number. No. What's the point of staying here? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen to me? Get a grip, Nuggy. Krishna sounded again. What? God damn it, it must be the monk. Some heavy impact struck my back. And after that, the white-clothed woman said something I couldn't understand. It was filled with strange rhymes I'd never heard before. Countless words that made me head go insane. But then, as I frantically flailed about, a long black skirt blocked my way. It was Yoishi, dressed in obsidian, as always. "Move," I said with a trembling voice, but this time it was not glass beads, it was not glimmering, but rather this time Yoishi had a fascinated look as she reached out with her hand. "Herp-a-derp, give me that." "That? What you're holding, that," she said, and I looked at what I held in my hands. "Nani?" "A key." There was the key to the apartment. It was a key I'd left in my pocket. I was holding it backwards, and on the end of it was wood. For a while, I didn't know what it meant. And then the wood fell off onto the ichi that had been cut ominously at my feet. What? No way. It was me all along. No way. That. Nani? Yes, Yoishi said in a whisper. The one that was carving numbers into this house was always you! It was you! With those words, my consciousness was filled with white. I hate it when that happens. In other words, it was I still don't know how to pronounce this, schema. I'm just going to say schema. It was an evening, roughly 5 days later. Krishna was talking to me in the B Club room at the university. Or rather, a reverse schema. That house makes people uneasy. Krishna and I were facing each other in the room, under the light from a pretty dawn. What? The house makes people uneasy? I repeated like a fool, and Krishna nodded. In the past, Ikaigabuchi investigated similar places too. The structure of the building causes changes in the human psyche towards anxiety. There are actually a number of them around the world. None of this is making any sense. Some of them turn into murder scenes, and others turn the people within into criminals. The design, the structure of the house makes people murderers. Okay. There's no actual scientific proof for the relation, but I'm of the opinion that they exist. People's minds, after all, are hazy things that you can easily manipulate into leaning one way or another. I mean, it's hard to deny that. Wait a second. What exactly do you mean? Basically, that building wasn't built for people. Okay. I felt something like a cold hand gripping my heart. I'll avoid saying the name here, but the architect of that building had actually received architecture awards during his time in university. People had high expectations of him. Krishna was illuminated by the golden sunlight, and her straight black hair glittered as she spoke in remembrance. He was supposedly a very serious person. Maybe too serious, no full stop. He was the type of person that wondered what buildings are, and he would lose sleep pondering that. Ah yes, I too have lost sleep wondering what buildings are. He loved the joyful faces of the landlord so much. What? And worked and worked. What? Just normal human things? However, he realized the futility that arose when one person asked him for another design. As he saw the house he'd put blood and soul into be demolished in the name of a renovation. Families changed, preferences changed. It's unavoidable as long as you're living, but he couldn't take it. If you take care of it while living, it would last over 100 years. Sometimes people should suit themselves to the house. Sure. He left those words and is said to have vanished from his atelier one day. His family put out a search request, but no one could ever find him. And some years later, he was effectively declared dead. That was over 30 years ago. That atelier was his final work and had at some point been dubbed the house that grants wishes. Naruhodo ne? Krishna pointed out the third floor window toward the residential district. This country tossed aside countless traditions along with its Meiji-era cultural revolution. I'm of the opinion that one of those traditions was the house. Tiled roofs became scarcer off the years, and buildings that housed several generations became rarer. Mass production, mass consumption. That was the era we'd entered. We weren't inheriting treasures anymore, believing instead that you could reset life every few decades. You know, that's actually kind of deep. Like, I'm not gonna lie. After all, that sufficed for supply and demand. But I think things that were important to the people of this country faded away more and more. After I heard her words, I thought, my father was saying the same. It takes 30 years to grow a single sturdy tree. Yes, they are not fast. And yet, the Japanese lumber industry found itself in danger of going out of business in the face of cheap lumber being imported. It wasn't that he was worried over his job. He was afraid that the idea that you could get an unlimited amount of cheap wood would become ingrained in the minds of the people of this country. This story is going places I honestly did not expect. In the past, people would pray to the gods of forests, would cut, trees. Why is it every time the word cut comes up, it's followed by an underscore? While offering thanks, and carefully built houses with them. Whenever they were rebuilding, they carefully tried to reuse wood whenever possible. Yeah, that's good. Even on this earthquake-riddled island, whole Ryuji had remained standing for 1,000 years. The skill of the carpenters who understood the finest details and characteristics of wood in the day were, of course, amazing, but they also say that the graciousness towards the important offerings of nature was just as important. I always agonized over having been born into a family whose business dealt with lumber. What? Why? Did I take care of buildings as I grew up? Did I ever think about the feelings of those who created the building? Honestly, I can't say that's ever entered my mind. Maybe I am also wrong. I was filled with emotions as I wondered if a day would ever arrive that his wish would come true, within this grand city where every day you could see the sights of reform or reconstruction. According to Krishna, everything originated from the design of that house, which contained the intent of the architect. When an architectural friend of Krishna took a look, they noted that while it looked simple, it used extremely high-level techniques. They said that the groaning of the house was to give it durability against hurricanes and earthquakes, along with a bit of playfulness to deliberately make it groan. Okay. The meaningful space under the stairs is the center point of a sturdily built house. The kitchen, which gets abused the most, was deliberately omitted. The living quarters were deliberately designed to interfere with daily routine. It was certainly a house constructed for durability. Krishna mumbled as she pushed her red-framed glasses up. Normally, houses should revolve around the inhabitants, but not in this case. People naturally begin to feel like the house was built for something other than themselves, and that was enough to psychologically rattle people. So what happens when a boy who'd just recently come to Tokyo, who has no friends, decides to live there? I mean, you don't have to call me out like that. So in other words, it had nothing to do with ghosts. Indeed, you're much more mentally fatigued than you probably realize, having moved to a city alone. You were the problem. You may have felt fear at first, but you probably tolerated it. But eventually, you reach a limit, and then what do people do? I feel like I'm being judged. Krishna looked at me with her big eyes. They create a reason for escaping from fear. I kind of like this turn that it's taken, I'm not going to lie. Creating, a reason. Yes, they create a reason for the sounds. In other words, you are subconsciously carving numbers into the walls of the house at night. I was the ghost all along. But I was speechless, and Krishna leaned closer. Think about it, Nuggy. Where does fear come from? It comes from the unknown. That's why people learn. What? They research inexplicable things to escape from fear. People's knowledge was born from effort devoted to escaping from fear. Cooking developed out of the fear of starvation. Clothing developed out of the fear of external temperature. And buildings and weapons developed out of the fear of enemies. Everything began from human fears. You thought there was an inexplicable sound at night. However, no matter how much you searched the house, you couldn't find a reason for the sound. Of course, you'd have to know that the house was deliberately designed to make sounds, but you had no way of knowing. Then what do? You were cornered, so you created a reason for the sounds. In other words, a reverse scammer. Scammer? It was, is that even possible? Impossible. No, it had to be. Otherwise, how would the number yon, she, have been carved into the back of a shoe I'd been wearing all along? I was wearing it, so it had to have been me. My lower body was trembling. It terrified me, the other self that acted irrespective of my will, or rather, that I didn't understand myself. Well. Krishna sat back down and sighed. It was partly my fault for leaving a building like that alone, even though I knew it existed right near me. Sorry. Okay, she said as she bowed her head, which flustered me. No, stop that. It all started with me being greedy because I wanted to skimp on living expenses and didn't immediately move out. Please raise your head, I frantically said. Just normal human interactions. It was your fault. She nodded. There are no shortcuts for granting wishes. I could give no retort and just groaned. Same. However, I realized there was one question that hadn't been answered. Wait. Then why were the numbers counting down? And then Krishna shook her head, saying, Who knows? Huh? You don't know? I asked, and for some reason her big eyes glimmered with amusement. I don't know, but I think you probably carved a cross on the wall. A cross? Not nana. Right, the number 10. It's possible that it might not have been meant to be a number to begin with. It probably didn't matter to you. Your fear was alleviated by carving anything into the wall, to act as the source of the sounds. However, this is why this incident came forth, a little bit of coincidence. On the place you carved, there was from the start, out of pure coincidence, a scratch. Subconsciously, you'd remembered where you carved Ju, yet when you woke up, it combined with the original scratch to create Nana, and that was what gave birth to something else inside you. A ghost. Ah, so that's why I felt an incredible amount of anxiety when I first saw that number. The feeling of having encountered something far beyond my threshold that I could not reason out. After that, you continued carving letters into the wall in accordance to the sound you heard after sleeping. The countdown was probably because of your subconscious desire. If the numbers went up, it would continue forever. You were probably hoping that it would eventually stop. After that, Krishna had a bit of a mischievous look. But you're quite simple. Rude. If the countdown ended, you may have ended your life. I'm glad we made it on time. And with that, she showed me a soft smile for the first time. All right. If you've had enough of this, don't enter the world of ghosts out of curiosity. And as with living people, pay respect to all existences. That's the main motto of Ikai Gabuchi after all. And the Krishna who said that with complete seriousness matched the imagine I'd had of Krishna the person, indeed, although she had a more moe character appearance than a big brother or father. What? What the? Okay. And with that, the complex, tangled thread had been solved. According to Krishna, she'd realized that the building caused anxiety in the psyche of its inhabitants the moment I made my first post. In an effort to keep it under wraps, she had left it in Karasu's hands. But Karasu was pretty careless to begin with, and then became drunk. These things happen. So the important message had not gotten across to me, which is why things had escalated to this point. So all of this was because one lady got drunk. I see. In any case, everything was solved, so that was good. Indeed. I'll give you a warning though. As I was leaving the house, Krishna had told me, "You don't seem to have much tolerance for this area. Maybe I shouldn't be saying it as an administrator for an occult site, but you shouldn't delve into the occult genre too much. Find friends in Tokyo with whom you can bond, get a girlfriend, and construct a proper solid identity while you dabble in the occult as a hobby. That's the right way to do it. Excuse me, ma'am, please don't police my hobbies. Especially, avoid that girl named Yoishi. You're not my supervisor." Which sounded about right. As Krishna said, Yoishi was abnormal. She was, to put it frankly, like her feet were planted firmly on the other side. That was probably why those urban legends popped up over her odd level of concentration on the paranormal. The sunset was extremely beautiful as I stepped out of the west wing. The clear orange colour shone straight to my soul. Dang. It actually says dang. I'd become easily moved by this incident and almost came to tears just out of graciousness towards peacefulness. I hung on, willing myself against crying. There were a lot of students about, and a feeder high school, was just on the other side of the gate to the west wing. There were a number of high school girls going home too. What is a feeder high school? Is that like an attached high school? I didn't want to embarrass myself as a university student. But then I realized one of them was staring at me. Her black hair was pretty. She had white skin and was slender. Slender Man? Her uniformed figure was blinding, and just by standing she looked like she was from a different world. Wait, what? Same. I eventually realized that I recognized that girl and couldn't restrain myself from running to her. Wait, are you Yoishi? And then, girl turned her glass bead-like eyes to me. Duh. Oh, you. Say. Her sleepy response made me realize she wasn't looking at me. Yoishi was wearing a school uniform and, perhaps as a fault of her looks, stood out. Even in such an appearance, she seemed distant from daily life. Hey, what a coincidence. You attend our feeder school. Someone please tell me what a feeder school is. What year are you? I get it, but I've literally never heard the term feeder school. I spoke to her with a full smile. That has nothing to do with you. Indeed, Yoishi's response was quite cold. There was none of her bedazzled, vitality-filled look anymore that she had when looking upon the paranormal. I hadn't come to school in a while, and I shouldn't have come at all. Same. she said with annoyance, and I noticed she didn't have the sharp smell from before. Oh, so you haven't puked recently. That's nice. It seemed she'd taken a bath. Glossy hair, an ironed white blouse, a black tie. I narrowed my eyes as I gazed at the contrast from before and said, "Pretty good." Indeed. "What is?" "Your looks. You look more clean and your uniform suits you. This is all incredibly weird." However, Yoishi turned her back to me, saying I was pathetic. She's not wrong. I intended to praise her, but it apparently just annoyed her. "If it's nothing, I am going." She turned on her heel and I hurriedly stopped her. "You were staring over there. Did you want something from Krishna?" "Krishna, my mortal nemesis." She seemed to react to that word as life seemed to return to her glass beads. "I see. Ikaigabuchi is here." Her response to the occult was pretty good. What? I felt like I was being driven mad as I continued talking in that direction. Oh, it's just a word salad. "I'm indebted to you a bit too. I heard all about that house. I didn't know there were things like subconscious confusion over a building. Man, I freaked out a bit when I learned the truth." I was probably on a high from having been released from my fears. I kept talking. I talked on and on. Everything I'd heard from Krishna, the truth about the incident, about the architecture of the house, about the will of the architect, and even about the problems of contemporary Japan. However, Yoishi didn't react at all. Without even glancing at me, she said, "That's good," and continued walking without any trace of emotion. That made me feel a bit lonely, so I chased after her, bothered by her body language. "What is it? You seem pretty depressed. Is there anything else on your mind?" And when I said that, I remembered. Come to think of it, that day, she said at that house, "Have you noticed?" Right. What did she notice at that time? I feel like this is getting towards the end, but I'm not exactly sure, so we're going to end this episode right here. The next one may be short, may be long, I don't know. But it was me all along, apparently. Interesting twist. Anyway, come back next week. I assume next week will absolutely be the final episode. I'll see you guys again then. See ya. Welcome back. Right, what did she notice at that time? I asked her, and she stopped. And then she slowly turned around and asked back. "Do you really want to hear?" "Yes, of course I do." I felt like those black, cold eyes would swallow me. And I heard something inside my urging me to stop. Yes, that, excuse me, I shouldn't learn any more, it warned. "You can still turn back," said Yoishi. "You know what they say. If you peer from this side, they can see you too." I'm sure they do say that. Krishna had said that as well, and I felt goosebumps. But I wonder why. That moment, I had a bizarre sense of excitement. That I wanted to see the world as she viewed it. That I wanted to stand where she stood. That I wanted to know why her words always seemed to sway my world. "I'll listen. Tell me." When I said that, was I seeing things, or did Yoishi seem to have a slightly forlorn look? However, I would realize later that this was a fork. A story about wading into the bizarre and grotesque, helpless darkness of a man. The boundary between that world and this world, the journey around the Ikaigabuchi, began this moment. After a moment, Yoishi nodded and then began speaking. I was always wondering what it was called, the house that grants wishes. Why? Because the title lacks a subject. Whose wish? And those words gave me chills, and I immediately began regretting my decision. That house isn't a house of hope. I just felt an incredible source of malice. Yoishi whispered, with the expression of a queen who'd been locked away in a dark castle along for 1,000 years. I'm sorry, what? Why is that the description you come up with? The architect that had disappeared while loving strange buildings. The countdown that began with Nana. The mysterious space under the stairs. The house that grants wishes. There's a single answer that ties everything together. My goosebumps wouldn't go away. What was she trying to say? What was about to show itself? The girl Yoishi's dark eyes glimmered as she spoke. I'm sure I'm about to be truly shocked, truly. I'm absolutely not prepared for what's coming. The architect is still inside those stairs! Dun, dun, dun! Yes, I'm truly shocked. Wait! Of course, he isn't alive, but then everything ties together. Why there's a meaningless space under the stairs, why it became named the house that grants wishes, and why the numbers began with Nana. Wait, it doesn't explain anything. Same. It didn't start from Nana because it was originally Jew and I had just coincidentally written over a scratch. Wrong. Her words twisted my world. You originally wrote Jew, you're right to that point. But there was never a scratch to begin with. Someone added a scratch and changed it to Nana. Why? Why can you say that? I saw. Nani? That on top of your Jew, someone had scratched. Someone had added a scratch to make it Nana. Then when Krishna said that there was no ghost in that house... And then Yoishi looked in the direction of the west wing with sadness. There's no better fortune than living with bliss. Profound. I'm sorry, this sure is something. That is that person's kindness and what I lack. So, they're trying to say that ignorance is bliss, I guess, and that Krishna was deliberately not letting Nagi in on the fact that the house was haunted because she didn't want him to feel scared, I guess. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. I was going to go mad if I didn't laugh. You're lying, aren't you? You're making this all up, aren't you? Or it's that. An occult story you'd read somewhere. I laughed, praying that that was the case. Nice artwork. Yoishi gave me a sympathizing look, a grieving look. I'm sorry, but that just actually does not make any sense. Herpaderp. Everything's the truth, because... I could no longer respond, and Yoishi quietly landed the final blow. When you were carried out, some man I'd never seen before was clicking his tongue on the stairs. Dun, dun, dun. As the world spun around me. Yoishi's cold, sweet voice reverberated. Welcome to the world on this side. Oh wow, that actually was the end. Nice. That was certainly a different story than what I was expecting. So it was like the twists upon the twists. Well played. Like, I feel like if I had read this in Japanese, it probably would have been less hilarious at many points. Like, the story itself I thought was really good. It does suffer from that, what can we call it? Like the anime type, everything has to be really weird about girls and stuff. But if you remove all of that, like the core story of the house, the haunting, the countdown, the space under the stairs, the fact that you're supposed to believe in the end that it was just him being incredibly unsettled by this weirdly designed house and that he was doing it all. But then the twist that no, it actually was a ghost all along, ha ha ha. That's interesting, I like that. And I believe this is the start of a series, like a book series. This is the only game, I think. But you can definitely see how it like sets up a book series. I'm intrigued. I'll have to see if I can go check it out at some point. But yeah, the translation certainly was interesting. It's nice that it exists, I'm not gonna lie, and I love dodgy translations. They're one of my favorite things. But anyway, I guess that was Phenomeno. We finished it. Sei Kaisha. Thank you. That was truly an experience. Alright. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was a thing. We'll be back again next week with yet another new visual novel. Stay tuned to find out what it is. I will see you guys then. See ya.